The Revenge of By the Numbers is, of course, brought to you by eSportsBet. Now, you might have heard in the past, I often mention for first-time depositors, you can get a 50% deposit bonus on up to 200 USDT, but they have an alternative. If that hasn't tickled your fancy to check out the industry's leading crypto odds matrix, then how about this? You can place your first up to 100 USDT bet risk-free. So if you lose that bet, then basically you can message the mods. You can do it on their Discord, on the website. They'll give you 30 USDT back. But if you mention IOE, they will give you up to the full 100 back if you lose the bet. So there you go. You can try it out for free. Basically, it can't go wrong on the first one, as long as you get it right. Remember to say IOE, who sent you, and that way you'll get the full bonus overall. Now, obviously, thanks to eSportsBet. Let's get into today's episode.
Chris is still in the picture. Oh, still very much in the round. Oh, Chris, he's found three. It's down to a 2-on-2. Chris, can he close this with an ace? Oh my God!
He gives him a chance at least, and this CZ kill could be everything. Finally, Zeus, he does something!
Looking for a second, he connects it. Oh, and he gets a third as well. Surely he's not going to pull this off. Oh, Caldera, the man, the myth, the beast. Zaiwu, no help really, but he's still hitting shots. He's already got three. And fine. And oh my God, Zaiwu! Unbelievable!
All right, what's up, everybody? Good evening, and welcome back to another By the Numbers. Well, I mean, it's been an eventful week. We've had a lot of going on. We've had to wrap up Blast, and we're getting into Pro League. There's been a bit of drama. There's been some fire articles dropped, and we're here to sum it all up for you, basically, and give our takes. Duncan, how you doing, my dude? You good?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
I have to say, like, this could easily have been another one of the last couple of episodes where it's like a semi-filler one, not much going on, you know, either you just review the roster moves as everyone does, or, you know, like, you got the preview of groups. But actually, yeah, as you say, like, out of nowhere, a bunch of interesting angles and stories have dropped. I think we've got some good stuff here.
Yeah. Now, they're like, and just going into the show today, I think Mira over at Deserto works with Richard, just fucking drops this massive bomb. Beautiful work from him. Excellent article. Great. We're going to talk about it. It's straight money. And, you know, obviously the best part that you can do right now is, you know, just have us on in the background while you're, you know, we're just going to be roasting ESL while you can watch ESL, and it's all just kind of coming together nicely, isn't it? So, yeah. Glad that you guys are all here. Thanks for joining us live. And, you know, to everybody tuning in on the podcast, on the audio, be sure to leave us a positive review or a review. I don't care, positive or not. Just leave a review because that helps the algo side of things. So if you're on the Spotify, on the iTunes, and if you're on the YouTube, big shout out for the support, and also big shout out for the reviews that you guys have been leaving. Those have been working awesome. So really cool. Thanks for that. But cool. Let's get into the thick of things. And I think what we should probably start off with right now, I mean, we have petty grievances, which is always going to be kicking it off. But we also have a little bit of we wanted to revisit a topic that we got in from last week as well, and I'm kind of tempted to just get to that one right off the bat so we can clear it, and then we can move into the rest of the show. So what do you think about that?
The only thing is, I've realised the one flaw we have is when me and Richard used to do it, like I always say, like Richard was just the host all the time. I never ever contributed any topics. Like the joke is, we even used to mention it. If I would put a topic in like the actual By the Numbers, that almost certainly meant like either A, Carmack's done something, or B, someone's pissed me off from Astralis. Like aside from that, Richard decided every topic on every show pretty much, right? So I'm not used to having this like group project approach where if you don't know, fans, I'll break the fourth wall. We've got like a Google Doc where we can put topics in. So for example, I was even getting triggered there that like while I was trying to actually look at one of the links, Semler was like himself in the document, and then he'd like moused over it. It made like a fucking pop-up image, like cover all the other links. And I'm like, what is this system where he can just like cover my ability to see my own screen? Like what the so anyway, whatever. Luckily he moved the cursor now, so that's all right. So I can see now. Because I was wondering, the part I was wondering was what's the petty grievances, but I've actually just like, yeah, what is the petty grievances? There isn't one this week, is there? I don't think we've got anything
this week, exactly. So it's more of a feature if you had something, because I didn't see anything in the doc, so I was going to kind of lay it up to you. If you had something, you could dunk, and if you don't, we can move on to topics.
Is there an angle? Did anything happen in the last week? I don't think much has happened, because here's the thing, like, whatever, Simple's been off my Twitter for a week or whatever. He took the challenge, I guess. I don't know. Let me think. Oh no, there was one angle. Actually, I've just forgotten. This is how many of these I've been through, Semler, where I actually am just like the guy on like my fourth tour of Vietnam. Like, whatever, yeah, kill women and kids. I mean, whatever. It's just a job now, isn't it? Like, that's the fucking level I'm at in esports. I almost forgot to mention there was a minor one, Richard. Sorry, Semler. There we go. You've already got status.
I got, you know, hey,
But the mad thing is, right, this is actually a mad angle, because I'll give you a small one. Because I guess there was the like minor Twitter thing with Bymas, or I call him Bymas, whatever. Do I call him Bymas or Bymas? Probably fucked on that one. I've said it twice now, so now I don't know what I call him. Whatever he called Bymas, there you go. The Lithuanian player who's played in Mouse recently, and obviously most famously, people might remember, he was the one who came in towards the end of the FaZe project when Nico and Yanko were still there. And at the time, if you remember, they said like they got him from FPL, but they didn't fit the like support roles. I think it was like all of my stream briefly stood in for. And then famously, right, he came to Mouse now, and in Mouse actually he's been a fairly decent player. Like, it looked like he had some promise, seemed like a good pickup. But the issue they have is, much as NBK found out, when the former Mouse Academy coach is the now Mouse head team coach, if there's someone on the Academy squad that they really like, it's not even that they have to be better than you. It's just like your days are probably numbered, right? Because sooner or later you're going to have a bad set of results. They're going to not be good in a certain way, and that coach is going to think, well, I've worked with these people before. Like, if you don't know, it's almost like an old school sports approach. A lot of people in sports would often bring in the old players that were with them at different teams. Like, if you know, when Roy Keane was a manager, or these sorts of people, Brian Clough. That's what you do when you have someone who's legit and you know how they operate. You bring him into your team because it just saves time getting to know a new person. So with that said, right, that whole thing could be its own story. Like, should Bymas have been removed? Like, did Mouse make the right move? But that's by the by. The petty grievances is this, Semler. Because during that Fallen stuff, this was the 12th of May, I know the date because it was when I get spammed by 1 billion people. Because of that Fallen tweet where everyone had to jump in and get the free clout, basically my tweet became the equivalent of them all waking up like, good morning, let's get this bread. Oh, thank you for my free likes. Like, because that's the sort of moron attention economy we now live in, right? What everyone did, everyone knows, is all the pro players. There's two ways you could go with this, Semler. If you were smart, like Shocks, what you do is this. You just message Fallen. You just say to Fallen or simply, oh, like, yeah, I also agree, like, Fallen is a great guy, you know, like, I support you, Fallen, or, you know, I agree, simple, it was wrong, or whatever. That's a good angle, because that's like you're supporting the guy you like. The other angle is you try and dunk on me. So, of course, good old Bymas, remember, a guy who's accomplished fuck all in his career, decided to go straight at me, directly to my account. I don't know this guy, never tweeted at him in my life. He goes directly at me on my account. He basically was trying to make fun of the fact that I had, like, that bronze coin because I failed the predictions. Because, spoiler, if you go back and look, everyone had for that fucking event. It was the one where all the like, who had Bad News Eagles beating real professional teams? Who had like G2 not going for, like, come on, they beggars belief when people pretend, mate, that they all got the diamond coin. Did you? Fuck, you didn't, you idiots. But anyway, it's whatever. I obviously only do the coin thing for the video because people want to know what your picks are. So because he's going at me on that angle, here's the problem, Semler. Yeah, it's one thing. It's all fun and games to some degree. It's just banter, right? But what the pros always forget, this is why I want to bring this up in the petty grievances, is they always forget this angle, right? Think how unfair it would be, Semler, if I pretended, because I don't like Bymas, that he is shit and could never be good at Pro CS. That would be really fucked up for my job, right? Because my job is also assessing player performance. Now imagine he just pretends I'm shit at my job and was never good at my job, and I don't have a career, and I don't know what I'm talking about, don't know anything about it. He's invalidating my career. Now what's fucked is I never do that. I'll never take someone's credit away for what they did in the game just because I don't like you did something else, or you said some stupid thing. But all pro players, they love to do that angle, dude. It's actually the go-to. You notice Nomad did it to you. He suggested you are a homeless man. His logic was because he thought your like banter towards him wasn't legit, or your like analysis of that situation. He thought that means I'm just allowed to lie. Like, what? Like, and that's the maddest thing. I know.
There's so little integrity. I actually had it happen today where I caught somebody on Twitter because they had been listening to my stream. They make this long tweet chain. They don't include me linked in any of it. They make this long tweet chain where they misrepresent what I was saying and just completely flat out lie on some points. And we catch him just by happenstance, by accident. We catch him in this thing. And it turns out he's still in the chat. And so we're just like, dude, what is this? Like, these are all lies, essentially. You're just completely trying to tank me here. You're including Twitch, you're tagging Twitch, you're doing all this bullshit.
Oh, trying to get you banned.
Down. Are you going to delete this? Because I mean, these are all clearly lies. No. He added a correction at the end of like the 10th tweet. He just put like, oh, correction on a certain couple of points, whatever, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh no, okay. So you get caught, you don't delete it. You add a correction at the bottom of it that addresses a point up at top, but you don't address all the other shit that you got that you were lying about. It's just like the culture now, like the way that things work on the internet now is just so fucking degenerate. It's really something. It was too sweet. It was like, holy shit, catching him in the act red-handed and still no shame no shame, no walk back, no nothing, doesn't delete it.
Oh, that's the most annoying thing. Have you noticed that?
Okay, interesting.
Because these people genuinely think they are morally superior in this equation, they actually think, by the way, that their version of integrity is to never admit you're wrong to someone you consider morally inferior. So as you say, even if you nail them, even if you do, like the number one that triggers me, mate, is when you go, they'll say a lie, like a factual lie, like you would never get hired for PGL Antwerp. You're like, well, actually, I was literally offered the job. Then they go, well, yeah, even so, though. And you're like, whoa, no. You tried to nail me on a fact. I've told you that fact is wrong. That means you are utterly wrong. What now we now have to reestablish is why you have any credibility in the conversation. No, but then they're like, no, but I've got more things I can just lie and make up. Like, yeah, I've no doubt you do, you fucking twat. But we just nailed you on number one, didn't we? So I don't think we will be moving. In court, you don't just get to go, so basically, you were just lying on the stand there. Well, yeah, but call the next witness. It has to be established first bit. So anyway, back to the Bymas thing. The point I'm making is this. So what happened was, because I'm a guy who has a good memory, mate, I waited, and then when Bymas, not only had been shit in the bed, but he gets cut from his team, well, you know what? That's just like the moment he tried to come in on me. So what I did was, just like he was like, enjoy the bronze coin, I was like, enjoy the bench. By the way, not even actually that spicy take, but it's just true. He's on the bench now and he's fucked. So enjoy the bench. Yeah. It's factual. I didn't put him there, by the way. If you want to get mad at Cyclone and Mouse. I didn't put him on the bench. I've even said I actually think he's probably worth playing in the team. I think he probably should be in that team. But fuck him. Because there's the thing, mate. These pro players don't get this. You know, one thing I'm really sick and tired of, Semler, is people acting like me and Richard are the worst people in the world with no morals. And then I don't get to like there's got to be a double jeopardy law in place here, guys. If I get punished for that, then I should be allowed to do all those things. Logically, you've already punished me for it with a fake bad reputation. So here's the thing, if you're a pro player, or if you think the last few years were bad, understand that was me restrained. That was my version of professionalism. Every single pro that has ever attempted to imply or just directly suggest publicly, I don't have a job, or that I don't know anything about Counter-Strike and what I say is invalid, or I have no integrity, I am coming at your motherfucking dome. You don't even know yet. This is like when all your coaches got banned. This is like when Valve comes for everything. I'm coming at your motherfucking dome. So it's going to be a real bad state of affairs. Because understand, when you get fired, when you have something happen to you, just like you try to come at me, I'm coming at your head because you put that on the table. All the ones who did it, by the way, all the ones who want to go back to the old arrangement, just keep doing as you're doing now. Perfectly fine. We've got our deal in place. But all the ones that thought they got smart and that they could fucking act out, and I can't, well, remember, you've already said I'm a piece of shit, so what incentive do I have not to do it? Exactly. So anyway, there's petty grievances. There you go.
Here we go. Yeah, settled. Gonna be very curious as to see how that pans out. Maybe he listens to this clip and he redeems himself in a way, you know?
I doubt it. He seems like he has some smooya in him, mate. He seems like a bit of an idiot, unfortunately.
Well, speaking of smooya.
Oh, you've got this as well, by the way. The other angle, but I'll give credit to them, at least they immediately backed down, was because I said this, right? Even though Frozen himself is in Mouse, the team that's cutting Bymas, Frozen just replied like, Chrissy Mike, what? And I just told him like, Nate, so just because he's your mate, he's like above any criticism now, you could get fucked too. And then fair play, Dexter actually for banter jumped in and was like, can I get fucked too? And I was like, it seems like you're doing a good enough job of that yourself in the game, mate.
Dude, where is this thread?
Oh, you have to go find the thread. Like, just put in like Thor in Bymas or something. He'll be out there somewhere. It was good. And as usual, by the way, here's the last part I'll say about petty grievances. Sadly, though, Semler, the response is going to be the same every single time you ever say something to a pro. It's the same litany of responses. You aren't as good at him as the game. How could you say that? By the way, you know the one that fucks me over the most, mate? It's like, I get it if it's Fallen. Fallen did build a whole scene. Fallen won majors, world championships. Fallen established some of the greatest teams ever, brought loads of people to a different continent, made them rich, real superstar. He did all those things, right? I don't agree, but you can say Fallen like had 1,000 times the career I did. Right? The idea that I haven't had a great career in my 21 years, Semler, and that Bymas for losing a few games in Mouse and FaZe has like surpassed me, like it just beggars belief, mate. Like, what's the standard at this point in time? Like, by that logic, has Henry G had no career as well? Has Richard Lewis had no career as well? Has everyone who didn't shoot people with a crosshair had no career in esports? Like, I've done 1,000 times what Bymas has, mate. I've been at 8 majors just because I'm the best. What the fuck has this guy ever done? So, like, there's another thing I'm sick and tired of. It's like, which is it? Are we respecting legends, which is why you must respect Fallen, and I can't criticize him? In which case, spoiler, I check every box for legends. I would be first ballot Hall of Fame as talent and a fucking journalist, you idiots. So where's my respect? Oh, I don't get respect. Well, if I don't get respect, you get no respect then. That's the way it works. It has to be quid pro quo. I mean, obviously the joke there is no fucking CSGO pro would know what quid pro quo means, because by definition, they don't give back to their org what they receive in money. So you wouldn't understand that concept at all. Anyway, right, skip on. It was going to go into a whole thing there, I could tell. So let's get going. Let's go. It's out of my system now. The petty grievances are sailed. Much like Bymas, we won't be hearing from him for a while at least. So let's get on with the rest of the show.
It just keeps moving along. I mean, it really does feel like they never. But to be fair, that it's ever since I think this really kicked off, where because you remember how the shift happened with ESL, etc., with where the players, whatever the player said goes, and whatever you have to cater to the players, every desire of the players. Yes. So they exist in this bubble where the TOs, the teams, everybody is looking out and just at the players' beck and call.
Oh, it's pandering all the time. Yeah.
When you run into something like that, so that conditions the community to think in the same way, and so then whatever the players say is gospel, and that's just you can't get around it. You have to constantly just kowtow to the players. So when somebody comes at them somebody comes at them, it's a shock. It's just like, what the fuck is this? They're not used to this anymore. All of a sudden, they're getting pushback. They're not getting the usual deference, and that definitely you can tell that has an impact on them, whether they know it or not. Some players are aware, some aren't. It's just the way it goes. It's interesting though. It certainly is. I mean, there's a couple of segues we go with here. Actually, there is a quick topic to just knock out of the way. And it was just, it was kind of like confirmation of the Rat King once again, just kind of getting in there and dropping the secrets. But there was that clip. There was a clip where I think he was on HLTV confirmed, and he essentially confirmed that Cirque and Breeze are making north of $30K a month right now salary. And so there was speculation as to how much these guys are making. And, Sponge was trying to be vague about it, right? Where it was like, oh, they're making a lot of money. And then smooya is just basically coming in and just saying, yeah, 30K plus,
Okay. So here's the thing. Obviously, we do discuss these things on our show. So it's not like I'm going to say it's like fucked up behavior, but I will just say, like, what business are yours? Is it smooya? You're not a journalist or something. Like, as far as I can tell, this is the first thing I thought when he said that, mate, was, oh, so that's what he was able to talk about on HLTV confirmed. Who the fuck's going to watch a 3-hour podcast of someone who doesn't have a team and whose whole career is just like, so what happened? I'm sort of a dickhead. Have you changed? Maybe. It's like, well, brilliant. Fuck, we're only 2 minutes into the 3 hours, Chad. Go to the backup questions. So no wonder by the end he was probably going, Breeze makes 30K. That guy's got a spot on his dick. I fucked his mom. Like, what are you doing? Like, I bet there's nothing left at the end. At the end, he was just like listing his favorite categories of beans. Obviously, the dream was everyone's like, what about Heinz smooya? He's like, Heinz? What do you think I am? A fucking EG player. I'm not made of money. Bloody hell.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, these guys, like, that's the thing. EG are just made of money at that point. If you're thinking about just the sheer amount of money that they're spending on that roster, because who knows how much Stewie was up to? But
man, that's the part they haven't thought about.
30, it's just like, man,
dude. That's why these fans don't know the space, because no one brought that up. They just mentioned what the players you're talking about. You mentioned Cirque and Breeze make 30K, right? Do you know what the immediate assumption should be? That Stewie was on more. Remember, bear in mind, he was the big draw coming from Team Liquid, and he's the one who built the team, and he's your face of the squad. And they, by the way, they were intentionally playing into the idea a bunch of them won the Boston Major. They obviously wanted that to be the theme and identity of the team. That was sort of a last dance, wasn't it? So that implies, by the way, think about this. Even though, by the way, on some level, me and Stewie 2K have had a fractious relationship over the years, but we actually don't have a bad one now or whatever. Like, you actually saw, I banter him lightly, but I don't really have any problems with him. In fact, I even told him basically, just embrace the meme about the fucking coach thing at the Starbucks, mate. Like, at this point, it'll either be used against you or you can use it for yourself. So make it funny. Like, make a self-deprecating joke, but like amplify it. Be like, you know what? Be like Nico. Just be like, you know what? In the future, no coach of mine's allowed to drink any substance around me. You know what I mean? Do some ridiculous thing like that. Make it like actually funny. Because when you stretch it to the point of absurdity, like I did with the Katowice thing, and like Richard did with the Loader thing, it stops having a sting at that point. Your enemies can't use it against you. Then you've sort of like transmuted it into something that's part of your brand. So anyway, the point I'm going to make is this though, because this will make him get sort of hated on. That does, though, make it look even worse. And spoiler, behind the scenes, we knew they were making this money. It does make the context way worse that he was doing those tweets earlier when he was losing every game. Going like, I'm not just going to quit because you hate us. Well, you're not shit. You get like 40K, so I imagine you wouldn't. I mean, listen, I wouldn't be bragging about that. What you're basically saying is I'm defrauding my employer and getting paid like what used to be like the Forest's entire fucking yearly sum at like the peak of his 1.6 career to lose every game. But I guess fuck everyone else except me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it starts to make you think, like, at what point do these guys ever, like, when does the shame circuit kick in and go, I'm acting like a bit of a brat right now, aren't I? What am I doing with all this money? I know it's bad. They just feel entitled.
Again, it's the same thing.
Because I would actually think that's similar. I know I'm a different guy, but if I was them, I'd even on some like low level feel a bit of guilt. Like, I'm getting a lot of fucking money and I'm not getting any results. Like, I'd actually feel like an obligation to the org.
No, it doesn't work that way though. It's a one-way street, But that's actually always been the. It's always been very difficult to have that conversation between the players, finding the balance between the players and the org, and what's a fair split. Like prize money or even the stickers back in the day. Remember that discussion when they were first introduced, where the orgs actually wanted to have it so that they receive the lion's share of the sticker money because they're the ones who are providing the services, or they're allowing the players essentially to compete by providing them with salaries and covering costs. And then the scene kept to let's say mature, improve, more financial support came in so that there was less and less of a load on the orgs to carry themselves, i.e. flights and hotels, etc. And then all of a sudden, there was room to negotiate there. But like back in the day, that was very much a thing. But that's the thing, again, it's so player centric. Even to this day, everybody is always doing everything to please the players. I don't think it ever crosses their mind that it goes both ways in that sense. Like they could owe anything in that sense. It's a one-way street.
I'll give you you'll love it, so I'll bring it up again. It's one of your favorite. It's one of your favorite. Let's see. I'll just find the exact quote. So here we go. The classic Thomas Sowell quote. And it says, "But today, some people are so used to special treatment that equal treatment is considered to be discrimination." That summarizes CSGO pros. Because as Semler's saying, here's the problem with the topic, right? It's not as simple as just like looking at the modern day ones and being like sports stars, like, you're all spoiled, you do what you've got. No, it's because here's the problem. Esports scaled up too fast. You have to realize if we just go back to like 2015 or so, 2014, that's when like the best team of the world made like 8K in the fucking month. Like they were way
getting robbed for years.
And you had to actually
be just criminally underpaid.
You had to actually be a top team. You couldn't just be a team for the names. There was no names. The game hadn't been around long enough. So at the time, anyone on a top salary, like the rare examples are like obviously Dignitas sort of parlayed theirs when they became North, and they weren't actually as good a team, but they sort of picked the right time to sign with North. There was a couple of times people got overpaid, but generally back then it was the best teams that got paid, the best players got paid, and at the time, as you're saying, we were actually coming out of the phase where you got exploited, where actually maybe your org did try and give you as little as possible and didn't even give you the prize money and did try to take the stickers and had all these battles. But the problem is, as Semler's saying, the joke is these players are like the nightmare SJWs who are just going to ruin culture and no one else can have it. They've done that thing where it's like you won every battle, you won every racial battle, every sex-based battle, every single battle that you could want to win, you won. But the point is, as you say about the Douglas Murray trip, like it's even worse, mate. They weren't just not planning on stopping at the station they said they would. They just like fucking did like one of those movies where like the train's out of control and you just put it on a max speed. It's just going, even if it's going off a cliff, because that's the thing about these people. Whenever it's based on entitlement and resentment, the person will always do, classic Bible reference coming, what happened with that famous story with the baby in Solomon, where what happens is, the short version is, the way you could tell who actually cared about this baby, that you had to decide between two mothers who were claiming it was theirs, was the one that said, he basically said, right, chop it in half then and give half to each mother. And the mother that said, no, in that case, give it to the other one. That was obviously the real one, because the other one went, yes, chop it in half, because that's the SJW, that's the pro player. What they're like is this: I want everything my way. And you go, well, it might not be able to go your way. They'll burn the whole team to the ground. No one gets anything. Everything's ruined. It's like, mate, you can't have that attitude, because I agree. The problem with players now is, I thought this Flashpoint era would do it, dude. I thought going online and seeing whether salaries got reduced again and there wasn't as much opportunity and NA died, I thought they'd start to get it. Like, look, guys, there's not as much money as you think in the scene. And in fact, a lot of it is going straight into your pockets. And by the way, here's the thing people forget, by the way, Semler. When money goes in the pocket of Cloud9, it pays a player, it pays some talent, it pays someone who works for them. When money goes in the pocket of ESL, it pays a player, it pays an employee, it pays that. When money goes in the pocket of Stewie2K or a pro player, it just goes in Stewie2K's pocket and he spends it on bells and whistles and candy pops. Like, it never comes back to us. It never comes back to esports in any way. So that's the other aspect I would say if I were them. Like, I don't think these guys understand what benefactors they are, because I've heard stories, dude, when people who are at this level think they're being exploited still and that their org's making millions off them. I'm like, are you out your mind? It ain't true. It ain't true, mate.
Especially in CSGO. Can't be true. Doesn't make, I mean, it's still so hard for these orgs to make any kind of money that, in fact, they're, for the large part, CSGO is still getting subsidized. Although that can segue into our next topic here, which is that there was actually Nadeshot on Reddit. There was a clip of him where he was discussing, I don't know, I guess he was doing an AMA or something on his stream, and he was discussing why, 100 Thieves don't have a team. And also he was talking a little bit about how the other teams, more credit to them for making the business model work for Counter-Strike because it's so incredibly difficult. And he even went so far as to say, like with the sticker money, that it's a good thing that there's the sticker money because those teams need it. And I think that's definitely a big part of the revenue for these teams now in order to make their Counter-Strike team work is getting your team into the major, but one way or another, by hook or by crook, you have to get into the major because then the team at least gets some money back on stickers, because it's still so difficult unless you're going the 1xBet way, or you're getting into crypto. It's very hard to find sponsors that are on board to support CS:GO in a big fashion because, again, terrorists, it's not super popular. If you're in Germany, good fucking luck. Nobody wants to touch CS with a 10-foot pole. I still don't know how big work. So I mean, like, you need to have the stickers. You need to make it work. And I actually wanted to get your thoughts on this real quick. Like, as far as Nadeshot is concerned, saying that the 100 Thieves were out. I saw you had a tweet on it. You actually had a couple of thoughts that you'd already put out there. But like, when I heard that, I was just like, man, what could have been if Flashpoint actually was a thing? Could have gone forward and we could have had competition between the leagues instead of everybody just saying like, yes, sign me up for the monopoly. What's your take on that?
It's what's hilarious, Semler. The whole thing that everyone mocked us for all those years, that all the teams signed the Louvre agreement and went to ESL Pro League instead of Flashpoint. Not technically true, because obviously Cloud9 and like Envy, etc. in theory could have fielded good rosters, and Gen G, like these were still good teams. But true, the majority of the top teams did, and obviously like all the top 10, etc. Right? When people laugh at that, Semler, they're laughing at themselves and CS Future, you morons. Because think about this. You know how I pointed out that the existence of Flashpoint actually got the Louvre teams a better agreement? I think it was even implied publicly that was the case. Well, it's worse than that. If they'd have actually not all signed the agreement and there had have been a split, Semler, imagine now when ESL tries to consolidate their project, they'd have to shell out all the millions they got from the Saudis, wouldn't they? This would actually be the time everyone could have gotten paid. This could be when they would be like, right, well, the Louvre Agreement 2.0, we want all the teams in now. So here we go, guys. We're going to bring millions in. We're going to subsidize your teams. Maybe this is exactly when you could have gotten the big pay for. But you don't, because what you'd got instead is you got like 10 cents extra on the dollar 2 years ago. So congrats. You've allowed Nicola Nyholm, the ultimate short-term actor, you fucking imbeciles, to cash out in the short term when all of you could have succeeded in the long run. But now, of course, it's too late. You've handed ESL their monopoly, and already you need to be in blast so that you don't have to go through the showdown. So it's over. You have no leverage anymore. And what's more is, when CSGO 2 comes out via like SourceNet, there'll be no leverage ever again. It's game over. You've actually sold the entire fucking thing up the river, you imbeciles. So yeah, there's that angle. Here's the problem I have with this whole topic, right? It starts with this, which is, homie, you already had a good fucking 100 Thieves CSGO team. You had the Australians. Even if people don't know, they made that like online New York final right when they were getting fucking cut from 100 Thieves. They were even still like a relevant team in the region. And spoiler, that was always a LAN team. That was the guys who'd lived there for years and years. That was even the team, by the way, of all the NA ones. I would have hung on to those pieces, mate. That was the squad I always thought you actually not only could update using talent from Australia, and they're the players that are going to vet them for you and get them for cheap, but then also like you had pieces like Azza, JKM, and fucking JKS. Like those three pieces are the starters of like a top 10, top 15 team in the world. Like, you want to keep hold of those. Like in the game, you don't let those pieces go, because when you buy them to start another team, you have to pay their buyout. Like once you already have a team, by the way, this is the reason why Nadeshot bringing this up annoys me, because when you already have a team and it is already established, and like I'm saying, you're only ever going to need to change a piece or two. You've already put in a load of costs. You've invested. You maintain that. Instead, what he did is let it completely go. And now, yeah, you know what, Sam? If you want to buy back in and be like a top team and be relevant, yes, it's going to cost you $5 million. Yeah, it's going to cost loads. And that's without all the flights and the salary. Yeah, it's going to be fucking insane. But you did that. You came out the game completely. Then also, not only did you have a team, but famously, Nadeshot never cared about it and never gave it any attention. He didn't even do it as much as like the other big ones do. Like, everyone makes fun of Hastro because he always brags whenever his teams win the championship. At least he's aware they're fucking playing, mate. The joke with Nadeshot is it's almost like if he gets too high one day, he's like, Valorant? What the fuck is Valorant? Oh, shit, yeah. Oh. It's like, do we have a Rocket League? Do we? I think we did. Oh, no, it's FIFA. Sorry. I get confused by all the balls and all the Euros. Like, he's almost on that level. Like, is this guy the fucking owner of the org? So our problem is this. Like, he had a really good team already. Spoiler, this is the one that tilts me the most, Semler. The guy on his team who was his coach, Kassad, is, in my opinion, one of the number one people you would recruit to be your GM and build you a team from scratch. You idiot. You had him already. You had him already in your org. Why would you let him go? That's the thing people don't get. If you have that guy, you can let the team go. Keep that guy to build your next team, or even build another team in another game. Fucking hell, you're killing me. So you already had Casada, would have been banging. And then I'll just throw this in there. If people don't know, 100 Thieves is obviously in the franchise leagues, right? They're in COD, they're in fucking LCS. That means basically he's just bidding for the... He's just betting that in the future someone buys those off him, buys the slot for LCS for 30 million and then buys the COD slot for 50 million one day, and that's his cash out. In that case, what's it got to do with Counter-Strike? Because my problem is this, is this actually a point about Counter-Strike in general? Because if it is similar, that's going to piss me off even more. Because I asked most of the owners, are you ready? This is why you'll never get the truth out of esports owners. You have to always rely on people like me. Because I went to loads of the owners similar who were moving out of CSGO, who were letting their teams go during the online era. And all I said to them was this, I'm sure you guys, because I know from Flashpoint, I'm sure you have very valid reasons that you leave in CSGO and that you have problems with the economy. And I said, here's all I want to do. I want to do one of those esports salon episodes and have 3 or 4 of you, and let's all just get in a group chat and let's have like a convo. Like basically, I'm sure you might have different reasons. Maybe one of you is leaving because it's not a franchise league, one's leaving because the salaries too. I said, it'll be great. What we'll do essentially is you're not in CSGO anyway, so you won't get in trouble. You'll be able to make your points. It'll sort of put people like ESL and Valve's feet to the fire, and you might even potentially change to a CSGO zone. In a few years, maybe you come back. Every single one of them, to a man, Semler, told me, oh, I do have a lot of problems with CSGO, but I won't be making any comments publicly. And I was like, why though? And the ones that were my friends basically just told me, like, I don't see any upside to it. Like, if I reveal the stuff, then like the other owners might reveal things about the games I'm in. It's like, it's one of those things. So basically the joke is, the only people, that's why sadly I had to do the episode with people who like the CSGO economy. So I did it with Nazgul from Team Liquid and Carlos Ocelot from G2.
Right. Yeah,
but the problem is, it made it look like it's all roses instead, because they actually like the game and they're sort of like walking the tightrope of spending just enough and getting the success. So the sad thing is, I've never been able to get anyone. If you notice, it doesn't exist. People just, on the one hand, loads of the esports industry is signaling, especially NA, is signaling we don't like the CSGO economy. We don't like this marketplace. But you can't get them to actually just say why. You cannot get any of the reasons why. So that's why, unfortunately, like, I don't think this problem's going to be solved. Like, I think Nadeshot probably has some valid points. But you notice he didn't give any. He just suggests it's too expensive or whatever. Like, what is that, mate? And then also, I'll just say this. Here's why it's whack. Because the problem is, unless the other orgs are lying, similar, unless G2 is lying and actually they're just subsidizing it using a different game, or they're gambling on having the best team and making more market in the future, essentially all Nadeshot just did is counter signal that his org isn't very competent because they're not capable of hiring someone to be a GM to run their CSGO division. That's really weird to me, Solar, because as I alluded to before, people like Nadeshot, Hastro and Carlos love to get in those dick measuring contests on Twitter and be like, I actually have the best esports org now, you know, when they've won TI or a major or something. Well, when they do that, how are you as Nadeshot going to join that convo? When your whole thing's like, well, how are you doing in CSGO, Nadeshot, one of the major esports games with an incredible tenure? I don't have a team because can't find anyone to hire anyone. It's expensive. Like, you look like a clown, mate. If all the others have top teams and you don't, then they're doing something right, aren't they? So I would also say, I hope some of this, I'm a little bit skeptical it will because of the source. I hope some of it might lead to some self-reflection, is all I would say. Because I actually fuck with Nadeshot, if you don't know, but I just do think he is a little bit of an airhead sometimes.
Well, okay, so the thing is here, actually, now that you mentioned that, what occurs to me here is that, remember how we talked about this? It's a bit of a thread or a bit of a theme in esports, where the idea is that in order to, if you're going to invest in a team, you're either investing so that you win tournaments and you win trophies, and that's how you're going to make your money, a la Astralis down the line, where you build up your hype, you build up your fan base, and you're out there winning trophies, and so you get sponsors. Or you go the content route or the merch route, and you just try and create a vibe, a culture, a content culture around your team. You're not necessarily out there winning, but you've got people who are popular, they're streaming, they're YouTubing, and you're getting your angle that way. To me, when I think about 100 Thieves, I don't think about 100 Thieves as an actual tournament winner. I don't think of, like, what team do they have that's won anything off the top of your head?
They won in LCS, but that's it. As far as I know, that's it.
Okay, so LCS.
They won an LCS split.
All right, fair enough. I don't follow.
I mean, I will say, to put that in context, LCS is the NA region, which of the major regions is like fourth or fifth, exactly. So it's, by the way, that's essentially equivalent to winning like. Let me think what the analogy. Well, bear in mind we have like Koreans and Asia and Chinese are the best in League of Legends. That's equivalent to winning like a DreamHack Open 2 years ago or something. Like, you're all right, but you're not the fucking best in the world. So yeah, I don't actually know a game because I don't follow COD. I don't know a game they're at the top in, mate. What are they at the top in? anything.
Actually, like it's like I literally, it's like if I go to their website, to their front page website, it's all just merch. It's all just clothing. It's like a fashion brand. It's not a. I don't see any, like. There's not. You go to other teams and it's like, oh, here are our teams. Here's the sport. Here's the esports that we're involved in, the games that we're involved in. Here's our teams, etc. And with 100 Thieves, I'm just kind of like scrolling through, and it's like it's just a rugby hoodie, rugby shirt. And just a bunch of t-shirts and hoodies and hats and shorts and pants, and I'm scrolling, and then at the very bottom it's like teams. Okay, hold on, let's click on teams. So then they have League of Legends. What else? Fortnite, Call of Duty, Valorant.
It's the one where they got Sean Gaz and DDK, and
then it's just creators. Yeah, I mean it's like Valorant is in there.
It's more of a streamer org and influencer org. Yeah,
but yeah, that's the thing. So it's like maybe that's the angle. The reason why, if I'm trying to actually try and look at it from Nadeshot's perspective, I guess he's not in that sort of thing where he actually is trying to build a team that's going to win anything. If his angle with his org is to get creators, create content, create a demand for the merch and demand for that. Because I mean, merch.
The joke is logically,
merch is a pretty big chunk of money right there.
It is for his company. For those, it's worth fuck all. The joke is he should have been the one signing Stewie then. At least you could market like the Smoke Criminal merch. You could all that. I mean, he has his own brand for that, to be fair. But you could do like a collab or whatever, can't you?
You could have done something along those lines. Instead, that's not the angle that I see here with 100 Thieves. But like I guess what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to like walk it back a little bit from Nadeshot's perspective, because I'm guessing if you're going at it from a content side of things, then you don't have that outlay to say, okay, we're going to build this tournament winning, like we're going to invest $5 million in this tournament winning team and go that route where there's no stream or there's no YouTube, there's no nothing behind it backing it. If your whole business model is going around merch and
here's what's wild though, Semler. I'll give you the info you just made me think of though that actually destroys his whole argument. It has to, unless he gives a special reason that, like, essentially, because when he says it's too expensive, I think what he means is because we're incompetent, it would be too expensive for us. Yeah, if you're doing what you're doing, you have no contacts, you're going to pay top dollar. Obviously, the first thing you do is hire the GM, right? Well, that's actually the joke, Semler, is the two games I'm aware of them having any success in, which is like they're all right in Valorant. That's because they hired DDK and Sean Gaz, so super knowledgeable people to run the team. And in League of Legends, people won't know this, but it's because they hired a really famous commentator called Papa Smithy, who actually was, again, a really knowledgeable analyst. So, like, again, the joke is you did it in the other games. Now go and hire a Kassad, a Zeus, these sorts of people in CSGO, and they will build you a team. Just like that. What's weird about that angle there, dude, is he's missed the meta of all the other teams. Think about how Na'Vi became #1, thanks to Blade. Think about how did Vitality become this interesting international team? Thanks to Xtaz bringing in the other players. So, mate, like, it goes down the line. Like, you've never empowered someone like that. You've never had someone like that, unfortunately. That's the modern meta.
Question is whether or not he walks that back. I mean, I'm sure he's still got Kassad's phone number. It's not like he could just call him up and be like, hey, let's make this happen. That would be interesting, considering like Kassad is still, like, right now he's doing analysis for Pro League. So he's going to be over in Katowice for 6 weeks or something like that. But I mean, like, what's stopping Kassad from joining a team right now? It seems really weird to still have him hanging out, flapping out in the wind.
See, my joke would be that this next 6 weeks then would be the perfect time to capture him. Have him thinking about it. Every day he looks out the window, sees grey Katowice, thinks, right, which do I have today? The shitty pizza or the shitty KFC? As he's thinking that, the call comes in on the line. Hello? Hey, bro, whatever, homie. So whatever, you get the joke anyway, right? Obviously, it's Nadeshot.
What's up, man? How's it going?
And also, I'll just say this, if you are actually Nadeshot, like, you live in LA, mate. Like, this guy, you don't need to pay him the same salary that you pay people in LA. He comes from Serbia, motherfucker, and he isn't in a team right now. Like, you can even get him, like, probably for a good deal. Like, maybe 10K, 15K to him's worth it, mate. To you, that's nothing, because obviously that wouldn't even cover, like, fucking insurance in America as a contractor. But the joke is, to someone like that, that'd probably, like, a full-time job. You'd go ham at that.
Yeah. I mean,
I will say one thing I do appreciate about Nadeshot is this, though. Even though he does remind me a little bit of Doublelift from League of Legends, where he clearly just, like, says things without quite, like, thinking it through. In some ways, that's also a strength, I actually think. Like, here's the thing I'll give him credit for. Just by doing these stream things, he actually has provoked a lot of conversation over the years on different topics like this. He did a similar thing last year where he said a comment like that it's really hard to, like, build a winning League of Legends team, for example, and that it'd been tough for him, and, like, people don't realise that, I think because basically in the first split he had a team, they actually did make it to the finals of LCS. So he was like, people don't, like, give us credit for what we did. It was such a short ramp up time. So he's actually made some very valid points. He can be quite lucid, actually, as much as he can be a bit of a meme otherwise,
I don't think you make it as deep as he has without having some kind of vision, without having some kind of idea and knowing how to get knowing how to communicate, especially with your fan base and with the internet, right? So
that's why it's so weird, as you say,
credit.
that like it's only success that he seems to view, because surely his whole career success ultimately isn't just how good he was at COD, it's how he's marketed his personality and his brand.
Without a doubt, hugely successful on that front. I mean, good for him. I mean, it's just interesting to bring up this topic again and to see if they're going to try and make any kind of play to get into the scene. Clearly, there's ideas here, and maybe this is going to be what shakes it up a little bit here going forward. I mean, although I feel like you highlighted at the beginning, it does feel like we're kind of narrowing down now, and we're going to go through this period where there really is just going to be ESL and Blast. And so if you're not sitting at the table, if you didn't get the invite to the party, you're going to be outside in the cold knocking on the door, and nobody's going to hear you because the music's too loud inside, right? Like, it's going to be a really rough time, I think, for not only teams to get involved, because if you're not in the Louvre agreement, then you're in qualifier hell, and we've seen just how fucking cutthroat that is, how difficult it is to qualify online. Astralis just barely made it. We're going to talk about it, but Astralis just barely made it through these online qualifiers to get into the RMRs, and that's a top team that's actually competing on LAN with some of the best, and they could barely cut it. So I mean, are you going to go ahead and throw yourself in there if you don't have a seat at the Louvre table or a guaranteed spot at Blast? I could understand why there may be some hesitation still on the side of Nadeshot to get in. So let's go ahead and oh man, we've got a couple of things that we could touch on right off the bat right there, but I think let's go ahead and actually review real quick this online format, because to highlight, so we're going to wrap it together.
One thing I'll never understand, because I used to actually get, people will think this is weird, but I used to get almost like mildly annoyed that Richard always used to like read the Twitch chat, and then like sometimes he would just go in on people, and I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, we were having a convo, like, why you talking to him? But I will say, like, because I've just been checking that the streams up every now and then, since we haven't done this for a while, and obviously Richard isn't here anymore, right? And mate, I can't even believe that this is how, you have to understand, the Twitch chat that we have for this show is what me and Richard in theory built up over like 7-8 years or something, with like all the most legit story. And dude, even our Twitch chat, even the ones who sob, it's just every single statement is just like, right, whatever they just said is wrong. Here's why what they just said is wrong. That's all every reply is, even from the fucking subs. Like, even when I say like a fact, I've even said facts on past episodes, by the way, similar, that I knew, like my personal friend in the industry told me that directly, and seeing people in the chat like, actually, I think that's incorrect, and actually maybe he left the org like a year ago. Like, what is the point of this show then? Do you just want to do the show? This is so fucking stupid. Like, why are you here? You're just here to go, that's not true. Actually, I don't think you did do that. Shut the fuck up and learn, you dumb fuck. No wonder you're just shelling out money on fucking Twitch Turbo or whatever, you moron. What even is that? I don't even know what that shit is. Whatever, Prime, whatever. I don't even know the terms. Whatever. Back into the show. What were you talking about, Sam?
Back into the show. It's fair enough. But back in the show.
I've got out my system now.
We can. It was just like, I wanted to talk about the online qualifiers that just happened for the RMR, because they were brutally cutthroat. But I also want to get your thoughts on this topic, because I read an article that was released again by Nero, who did a terrific job, where he writes an article, "The Case for Swiss System Open Qualifiers," which is over on HLTV. You guys can go and check it out if you like. Really well done. I thought he did a good job summing up all the points, and this guy just continues to deliver good content. So give it a look, and give it a listen, and give it a comment or anything like that. Whatever you can to drive traffic to it, because I think he deserves it. But the point that he makes is that right now, the way that the open qualifiers are working, where it's a single elimination bracket, best of one as well for the most part, that you can just go through, and even the best teams are going to get upset at some point. It can be brutally cutthroat when you're playing in this kind of online environment where you got guys whipping around corners, just hitting headshots, and it's just so difficult to deal with, because you can't do any anti-stratting, you can't do any prepping, you just have to be good to hit the ground and run. And after 8 hours a day, so the point that he was making was that you could just run these online qualifiers as a Swiss system, and you could even have best of threes, and just, it would take the same amount of time, because you're playing rounds at that point, right? And so you could play out the qualifier over a period of 7 or 8 or 9 days, and just play it all the way out, start to finish, one big qualifier, and you'd wind up with the 16 teams at the end of it. So, like, what do you think about using Swiss system in this online format? Because we kind of touched on this a little bit last week, but the idea of using Swiss to address the qualifier point actually never even occurred to me at that point. So it's like, what did you think about that?
Listen, I don't mind it in contrast to what we have now, but the problem I have is this. I would just reformulate the whole circuit. Like, one thing I am so sick and tired of is this notion that, like, it's impossible to fix this problem. Like, well, how would we know who the top 16 are to invite to in a closed qualifier? We have an entire circuit, the same way tennis does, the same way every sport does.
Golf would be the one to determine who gets invited?
I would at least, because here's the problem, Semler. What you're doing is what people love to do in esports, where you ruin everything for the sake of utopia. You know the best part about utopian dreams, guys? The word utopia literally means no place. It can never exist. It's not supposed to ever exist. So when they sell you a utopian dream, what they're telling you is, here, moron, here's what you would like to think would be real, and do what I say, and maybe it will be. Spoiler, it won't be. And then when it isn't, I'll go, nah, it didn't work out. So what they do is, I'll give you an example. They do the same thing in League of Legends. The way they have ruined every single world championship in League of Legends is they demand that they can't have real seeding. They can only seed by where you place in your region. So as a result, Semler, every year to this day at League of Legends, they pretend that the #1 European team is identically good in the seeding to the #1 Korean team. By the way, Korea's won worlds loads of times, 6 times or something. And they will also then pretend like the #2 Korean team is worse than the #1 European team. By definition, that's how the seeding works. That's how they treat the teams. Now, every single aspect that your eyes tell you and the circuit tells you that's nonsense. So what they're doing there is they are absolutely cutting off their nose to spite their face. They have an idea of what they think the world should be like. It isn't, so they pretend if I create the scenario in which it is like that, it'll happen. It doesn't. So in the same situation, here's my problem, Semler. Why the fuck are we having real professional teams like Astralis, who were in the major, competing from like early on in these massive open qualifiers? Why are we being told to believe that like hundreds of random teams that none of us have ever heard of are comparable to Astralis, and that it's only fair for them to play against them? I've made this analogy in the past. If you made all the best tennis players in the world start in the open qualifiers for every Grand Slam, there'll be a bunch of them who don't make it through. Same reason why, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you play 6 matches in a row, you can lose one. Everyone's human. So the problem is, though, in those sports, yes, they've got a unified circuit. Yes, they've got a unified seed system. My point is, can we not have some middle ground? Like, can the HLTV ranking not count for something in terms of deciding where you get on this case? Because the obvious scenario, Summer, is this. You want to have it so that depending on how good you are, you have to do less qualification for the major. Like, obviously, it'd be ridiculous if FaZe, the reigning champions, start in that open qualifier and just bombed it out. Like, they don't, obviously, they get to skip ahead. But wouldn't that be absurd if they had to play and then they went out in round 3 to a random team you never heard of? But that's what we're doing, essentially. That's the side of silly scene we're setting up. We're pretending like the rest of the scene doesn't exist and Valve can't even acknowledge it. And we have to pretend like that if me and you make a team right now as a pickup team and enter the qualifier, we deserve an equal chance to qualify for the World Championship as Glaive and Astralis. That's absurd to me. Like, on its face, it's absurd. The eye test's absurd. I actually think it's somewhat disrespectful to the pro scene, because you're acting like the pro scene doesn't exist and all that exists is the majors, and that it is. And this is what I hate. You're actually playing into that vibe where you act like CSGO is that movie The Wizard from the 80s. You know, the one where that kid's playing Mario and he goes like the World Championship. Like, the premise is similar. There is no person that we haven't found who could win a major. It doesn't exist. It's functionally impossible. There is no guy out there with 4 other people who could get through this qualifier we've never heard of who would win it. Which is, when the problem with that is as far as I can tell, how you've designed the qualifier. You've designed it as though Valve's like, look, I don't want to say who's good. I just want the games to decide it. Because there's the last problem to say. Because you're using online BO1s to qualify, you aren't playing proper Counter-Strike. That isn't Counter-Strike. Esports Counter-Strike is LAN and it's best of 3. That is modern day Counter-Strike. So you're also, in my opinion, you're competing in an inappropriate format. And that is because there are too many teams at the beginning of the open qualifier, because you're treating everyone as equal. So if you just essentially use a reasonable tiered system where, like Astralis, look, maybe they don't go straight to the RMR, but maybe they're in the closed qualifier for the RMR at the end, that all the ones coming from the open one. You know what I mean? Like, they were #4 team in the world at this time, if people don't know. Like, this beggars belief, guys. So I just think there's a compromise that could easily be reached. But Valve, just like Riot, they refuse to acknowledge anything else about like regions. That they want to believe everyone's equal. All men are born equal. By the way, I've never understood that line. All men are born equal. By definition, they're not born equal, you moron. They have totally different bodies and genes. That makes no sense. So I've always thought that whole philosophy ruins the world. Anytime you're trying to make everyone equal, you just cut people's legs in half.
Everybody equal in terms of all characteristics and traits. It's the value of human life. Everybody's equal. The value of each human life is equal, right? Now, not in terms of traits, in terms of ability, in terms of talent, in terms of intelligence, in terms of all sorts of other factors. No, you will never make everybody equal. But an inherent, like a human life has inherent value, and that's what that point is, I guess. This whole thing, like this, I think this whole thing kind of stems from, this is a handoff way. I think you're bang on the money in that sense, where this is Valve being able to just say hands off. We don't need to actually do any maintenance in between, because I think from their perspective, if they use the like whose rankings do they use if they wanted to seed? Do they go on past results? They've kind of tried that already, where the legends and all that sort of thing. They've kind of tried that method. But if you were to just go off of rankings in terms of like, we're going to seed this open qualifier with rankings. So if you're a top 20 team, you're already going to start off in like the round of 32 or whatever, instead of the round of 60 or 90 or whatever the fuck. So the point being, because Valve don't want to actually be in a position where they have to maintain rankings of a teams and organize that sort of thing, and they don't also want to validate, let's say, a third party's rankings, because then you have multiple rankings. You have the ESL rankings, you have the HLTV rankings. Whose rankings are you going to use? They have your rankings. Once upon a time, you were making rankings.
I still do. I'm just too lazy at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I was curious. I was like, when was the last time that
it'll come out again? I'll do one soon.
But it's like the thing is like, whose rankings are you then going to use at that point to justify it? So this is literally the most hands-off way that Valve can take on it, where it's like, okay, we don't need to have rankings because we're not going to maintain that sort of thing, and we're not going to run it ourselves either. We're just going to leave it out there, and you can qualify. Then it comes down to ESL to determine what is the best method, I suppose. But I'm not even sure that ESL have the free. I think
blame ESL for this, mate.
They're pitching this format.
Think about the sheer logistics.
Valve are signing off on the format.
No, but the problem is, what other format can you do? You have to include every team in the world. You have to start out, right? What possible logistical format could you ever have that would allow you to do it? Doesn't exist. You wouldn't have time. Remember, this has to fit in with all the other tournaments going on. Like, as you saw, Blast were already having to make accommodations for Astralis to play in one of these things. Like, the schedule's so packed as it is because, by the way, Valve refuses to ever intercede and tell ESL, stop fucking taking it all. So because they never do that, you create a problem, which then ESL, remember, as long as you're allowed to have an initial point, like if something starts something, well, then you can just complain second order effect. Well, it wasn't my fault. The tournament's like this. But the joke is ESL created it like that in the first place because they run the circuit so cynically. So the problem is Valve, essentially this just goes to a larger problem, which is Valve just won't have any say in how the circuit's run. And as long as they have no say at all, yeah, we're going to get painted into a corner. By the way, just like that whole RMR thing, they don't seem to have any problems with that either. ESL's also done that in kind of a scuffed way, but Valve could easily have come in at the beginning and told them how it should be, or told them what their expectations were. But they, again, as you say, what Valve likes to do is earn billions of dollars from Counter-Strike. Pretend, I've noticed, like the esports side isn't that much of it, or something like, which is, by the way, bullshit. Counter-Strike would be a dead game without esports, in my opinion. This game would have lasted a couple of years max and been dead. It would never be being played like it is now. This game is played now because it's a trickle down. It's the ultimate game that you can watch the actual pros play and go, hey, I'll fire it up and play. It's probably the best example of that ever. So I think the idea that like I'll say the same way I've said in past by the numbers episodes. How many more billions do they have to make before we can have a proper system? You know what I mean? Like, mate, billions. You know, back in the day, making millions from games was amazing. They make billions in profit, guys. Billions and billions of profit. Pure profit. It's a game that, remember, they've already made the game. They've already got a skeleton crew of people have to maintain it. Like, the point I'm making here, guys, is if they won't do it when they make billions, there's no financial incentive will make them fix the scene. This is just how Valve are going to interact with us. It's going to be like this till the end of time, I'm afraid.
It's like that. You can keep saying it until you're blue in the face, but the way that Valve rank esports in the company in terms of opportunity cost, it's at the bottom of the barrel. They actually look down on developers who focus on esports. For them, it's like, why are you wasting your time with that when you could be working on the Steam marketplace? Like the inside knowledge is just that most of the CSGO devs, the actual CSGO devs, are not actually CSGO devs. They're Steam marketplace devs that have managed to argue like, hey, if I'm working on CSGO and that factors into the Steam marketplace and this factor or whatever, you know, and then so they're using, like, it's everything has to do with a profit motivation, and everything has to do with, it's a business after all. At the end of the day, it's not a charity that they're running. It is a business, and so, you know, you have to justify your time at Valve, and because everybody makes so much money based on their time at Valve, because you're literally talking about billions. It's like you actually have to have a strong argument for anything that you do at Valve, because those guys are like, listen, you know, we need to make money. We're not here. We're not a charity. And if you as an employee are not making money, then we're just going to give that to a contractor who we pay a small amount of money compared to the bigger picture, and, you know, let him run that sort of thing. Right. So there's all sorts of factors to take into account when it comes to like Valve and CSGO and how it works. But really, ultimately, CSGO is just a marketplace machine, because the skins, you know, the skins are created for CSGO that are then put into the Steam marketplace, that get people to put more money into the Steam marketplace, and that make the billions, that make the money for Valve. The CSGO game itself is just the engine to facilitate that skin marketplace. That's all it is. So the minimal amount of work that you can put into actually getting the game developed and making sure that the game continues to run, that's good as far as Valve are concerned, because that's not the real concern, like the good game. It's really just about, you know, continue to get people to purchase money to spend money on skins. That's the name of the game for them. It's the microtransaction well that we found ourselves in, that's slowly like eating the soul of every game developer. And, you know, all of the game developers. I was talking with a buddy today who happens to play a lot of the Blizzard games, and he's just like he's complaining about how Hearthstone, they've changed the battlegrounds, the way that it works, where you have to you can no longer use the in-game currency to purchase the perks. You have to spend real money now, and that's just a thing. Whereas before you could use in-game currency. And so it's like, even just like across all of these games, they're just slowly making it so that they're taking away the stuff where it was time, and just say, like, just give us the money. It's like Robert De Niro, just, with the phone cord around your neck, just, where's my money? Where's my money? Like, that's the game developer now with their player base, where it's just like, what do I need to do to trick you to stay in the game, to get you to keep spending money? Because now the amount of money I can make off of you is infinite. So how does that work? How do we do that? So esports, as far as Valve are concerned, that was a major black pill moment for me when the devs were just like, yeah, we don't care. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's also one of the things that's annoyed me so much over the years, is that I was there at the beginning of CSGO when famously, like, they just completely ignored Lurpus and all that shit he was doing with that forum that they all claimed they wanted the feedback from, and all the pros weren't even in. And because fans were so insulting back then, I've never ever been able to abide people telling me about Valve, because every fucking 2 years this sort of a discussion comes up, and dickhead fans who haven't been here and they're all Johnny come latelys just come in like they do with Riot, and they go, can't you just give them the benefit of the doubt? I'm sure they're all good people trying to do the best work. And maybe, have you tried talking to them? My favourite is when they go, have you tried being nice to them? Why would they do anything for someone who's as rude as you? And it's like, you moron, that's like I came and did someone like 50 favours. They never ever gave me any respect. And I'm like, well, fuck you then. And you don't know, and you just came in 1 second before I said fuck you, and you're like, why are you saying fuck you? Maybe if you're nice to him, he'll do what you want. Say, I've just done all that, you idiot. Fucking clue up. You don't know what you're talking about. So I'm sick of people telling me to give either Valve the benefit of the doubt, or even worse, implying like, this is why God doesn't talk to us anymore, because of people like you, Thorin. All the way around, you moron. The reason I'm like this is because they don't fucking talk to us, because I've literally heard the horror stories. I've told this story before. I've always kept the name secret, and I'll do it again. There was a top professional player, and when this guy retires, I'll get him on the record, because this will age so fucking well. There was a top professional player who sent Valve an email, and he even had someone who was a native English speaker rewrite the email to be as correct English as possible, and to make sure it had a respectful tone. And all he did was explain to Valve, like, here are some of the problems I think with your game. And this is after CSGO had already been out a few years. Valve not only never replied to his email, but some of the Steam devs, like, unfriended him. There you go. That's Valve. Fire, isn't it, that one? Can't wait for that. Fucking few years from now, we'll see. Few years.
Oh, man.
So when you know shit like that from years ago, and then you have morons going, I'm sure, just be nice to them. It's like, mate, they don't respond to being nice. They don't respond to it.
It's not their bag. It's not their jam. It's not what they're about.
And the other thing is, as you've said, there's not really any way we can incentivize them to play with us more. Like, they're just going to do what they're going to do. They're sort of set in their ways in that sense.
But that is ultimately, that's the name of the game for them, because they make such astronomical sums. And I think you're right. I agree with you in the sense that CS:GO only survived because of esports. I think that's changed somewhat over the years, though. I think at the beginning, when we first got into it, 100%, because I feel like it was almost 1-to-1 player base to viewers on Twitch. Like, if you were playing CS:GO, it was because you were following the esports. But I think as it grew bigger, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. Because, well, I mean, as far as like when I played 1.6 in Source way back when, I didn't even know esports was a thing. I just played 1.6 in Source because my friends were playing it. And I was like, oh, great, I'm going to play this FPS. This is cool. This is fun. We'll do Ice World or something like that and just, shoot and change. But so I think like we've kind of reached that point now with CS:GO, where now maybe it's not so much focused on esports. It is actually kind of grown into its own thing of like gaming. But there was definitely 100% a period where it was almost 1-to-1. It was crazy in terms of player-based viewership. Like, the viewership on Twitch was almost always kind of mirrored, and it was a really tight-knit community at the very beginning that were pretty much entirely focused on that. So it wouldn't have taken off the way that it did without esports. But now Valve can retcon it and just say like, well, it's always been like this. I think that's the reality. It's like they don't want to admit that they actually needed esports at the beginning to make the game work. They want to think that, it was our decisions. It was all, we're just these master game devs, and we're the ones who made it all possible in the end, right? And that's probably
for you on
much more in line with the reality.
even though I don't think they're consciously doing it, Sam, like they're not that far ahead, like 10 steps ahead, fucking chess masters. But there's actually a very good reason, company-wise and in a corporate sense, as to why they should have the approach you're taking about, which is the general game dev approach goes like this. It's our game, we made it, we own and operate everything, and you're just, if you're lucky, allowed to be a part of it. Like, we'll let you be a part. That's how gracious we are. You can come and do something for us. Now, the reason why, even though that's a really fucked up, like, informal like attitude to have towards people who have helped you and have been partners of yours, here's the legal reason why it's actually very shrewd and in the future might be very important. Because one of the big things that will come down the line in the future, once esports scales, probably like 10 times more, is people will have enormous battles against developers for IP rights. Because what they will claim is people aren't watching I Am Cologne because it's Counter-Strike. They're watching because Simple and Carrigan are playing. And I would say that is true in the same way as you're not watching a football match because the ball was made by Spalding. You're watching because Messi's kicking the ball. It's his performance that you're watching. The actual sport part just enables his performance. So in the same way, in other fields that don't have the same IP rights, obviously these players have massive amounts of things they can do and make money in ways they can control. One day that will happen for esports. It will be argued that the players are a performance component and they should somehow share part of the rights or the licensing, or they should be allowed some consideration. And basically, the point is, at that point in time, these companies are going to have to go hardline what you're saying. They're going to have to say, no, it's just the game. The game is what made it the big. It's the game that made it this way. We enabled them, because that's going to be their argument to try and keep their control. Because look, it's not going to be soon, but that will be like the land. That will be like the what do you call it? Like the fucking groundbreaking moment if it ever happens.
I think that outlines the major difficulty. It's amazing to me that they're able to get as much VC as they can already, these esports companies, because their entire business model is built off of a game whose IP they don't own.
Literally, people don't realize this. If they really wanted to, just like, by the way, Riot has done this. They did this to Monty in League of Legends.
They fucked Monty over.
They can just say to you tomorrow, I don't care how much it costs you, I don't care how much you're going to make, you have to not only sell, but you have to sell to this guy for however much I say. You can do shit like that. Because the problem is, even if you could potentially win that court, who wants to go to court for years and years and years? So I'm sorry, in the short term, like these game devs could absolutely wreck any esports org, mate. Yeah, you're right.
Without a doubt.
You've built your house on the fucking sand. Yeah.
That's why it always amazes me that they're still able to get investment. Because I mean, you're talking about you don't have a firm structure on which to build your product, because the rug can be pulled out at any point by a developer.
This all ties into a certain topic though, Sabler. That's why the NA teams aren't in CSGO, because I don't think it is as easy to get that VC for that anymore. I think actually what happens is, here's what happens. If I'm pitching games to my VC guy and I tell him Valorant's about to have like a shared partnership thing, he's going to tell me go with that, not go with CSGO. Why would I go with CSGO? Isn't that the game where you just said you can take everything away, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, the problem is the other games, at least they've got a model, is how it's perceived.
Well, there has to be. I mean, it also has to, without a doubt. I mean, that's why all of the TOs were so excited to get into Overwatch League. For them, they were like, this is the best investment ever, because all of a sudden, like, purchasing into a franchise league, you have other people who are taking the risk with you, and the game developer is on board from day one. You know, they're invested in it. So it's like all of a sudden you have a bunch of strong arguments to get people involved with it, because, you know, it has support from the game dev and everything. Whereas well, I mean, that's the cost of doing business in CS, where you have the Louvre agreement or something like that. That's not nearly as appealing. And well, I guess, you know, you didn't even have the sales going on back then, but now you're starting to have these sales for these franchise slots for multiple tens of millions of dollars. If you show that to an investor, all of a sudden that may make things a bit more appealing as well. Versus what do you have in CS:GO? You know, you just have your brand. You have your players who could fuck off at any moment themselves and just get bought out. And then where's your value? Where do you actually have your value at all? So still leaving. So I mean, I guess we're like circling back to Nadeshot again, where he's just like, you know, I guess I can see why you would hesitate to try and get into the scene now, especially if you're not sitting at the Louvre agreement table, because what do you have that can get value, that can get your investors invested? This is probably why Complexity went the way that it did, and Cloud9 originally went the way that it did. It's just like, well, how are you justifying your spend? You have nothing to bring back to the boardroom. So. Yeah, it feels like we could go on for a while.
Well, here's the funny thing. Do you want to know the punchline?
Hit it.
I'm pretty sure. I know they were in Blast. I think 100 Thieves was in Blast and Louvre Agreement. So they already even had those slots in the past with the old team. Because here's the reason why it annoys me as well, Semler. If it really was just about money and you just in 2020 and 2021 you didn't want to run a top Counter-Strike team. This is what's annoying. Bearing in mind, as people like Complexity and MIBR have shown, you just get those slots for years and years and years. Like, you can have teams that are bad. You can be bottom of the league like Cole. It doesn't matter. You can be like EG and be shit. You still have that slot. So the slot is worth maintaining. So here's why I think Nadeshot is really silly. Because I think the implication here is he's thinking about should I do CSGO again, because he probably heard about Source 2. But then he's realising, I'd have to start from square one. Well, here's why you wouldn't have needed to. What you should have done is this, in my opinion. If the problem was just you think it's too prohibitively expensive to run a top team, then don't do that. Run like a skeleton crew until you're ready to reinvest. So like what he could have done last year, by the way, is he could have just signed big names. Like the joke now is the player you would sign right now if you're Nadeshot just to keep things taking over and keep the slot would be Forrest. He's one of the most famous players of all time, super beloved. Everyone wants to see him play again. He's probably half decent. Yeah, he's not going to be great.
Actually got a fan base.
And by the way, he's not going to ask for much salary, is he? You can probably pay him like a small salary. That would even be a quid pro quo. He benefits from obviously being on a slightly better team than he should. You benefit from someone who's going to be cheap but still have a big name and can provide additional value. Like, I would have done that. I would have gone a cynical route and done almost like a streamer team. Have like Get Right and Forest, then bring in like, I don't know, fucking Olaf Meister. Like, you know what I mean?
Though.
Yeah.
You know, that, like, this sounds like the Dignitas model where they leaned hard into the old NIP team.
Yeah, but
there
their problem
no
is
reason
this.
to put that team together apart from trying to build on the
Yeah, here's the
players.
problem, Semler. Freiburgen exists whenever star players. I don't ever want to hear that they were stars in the game. They weren't.
No,
like,
no, they weren't. They weren't.
When Freiburg was an amazing
brand,
player,
right?
No, but my point is that's not a brand. Like the reason Dignitas was a shit idea is it was that they actually did build that as a competitive team. They thought they would be good. Now, true, it's because they thought they'd be on LAN.
Okay, really? Did they actually think that team was going to be a competitive team?
Mate, I won't say what he said, but Fifth Lara thought it would actually work and it would be like a competent team. I would just said, well, whatever. Look, God bless you. Get the money if you can. I guess you didn't get paid. Just go for it. Yeah.
God bless. You know. Right.
Like, I never believed in the project.
Like, okay, we're gonna try and make. I thought they were going the content route. Like, oh, we're gonna like this will be NIP. You know, it's the goal.
I mean, they did fuck all. They did almost no content, mate.
They did nothing. Yeah, no, nothing.
Yeah. No, the problem I have is this. That team's like, that's too much in the middle of those two concepts. Like I say, if you wanted a cynical team, here's the really cynical team, Simon. Are you ready? Here's my team during the online era, and I'm just going to pay you minimum salary, but just enough that you pay for me. Right, my team is Get Right, Forest, Neo, Taz, and Kenny S. There you go. Remember, I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to have amazing fucking names that are all available. They're all going to play because I'm not going to pay them. That team would have interest. Everyone would watch them. Who the fuck would be interested in that?
Yeah. I mean, look at the hype, coming up from the Forest and his Doom roster and these RMRs. Get Right, Forest, just pug in with Freiburg and stuff like that. Dude, that would be legit. That would actually be really entertaining. It'd be fun to watch at least.
Let me see. Wait there. I'll just check in the Twitch chat because maybe I'm wrong and actually that wouldn't be a good team. Was it? No. Would it be a good one? All right. Okay. Well, whatever. Just keep going. Just wanted some production tips for the episode.
You love it.
I even get people, by the way, this is how bad fans are. I'm not joking, Semler. I get people who are like, I've only just discovered your videos. And I think actually if you just speak a little bit slower, you might be more popular and well understood. Like, tell you what, give me more tips about how to do esports content, the thing I've done the most of ever in human history for 21 years. Go on, give me some more tips, random guy I don't know, from Portugal. By the way, the whole country of Portugal, A, you already spawned Brazilians, so you have committed a crime you will never be redeemed from. And B, you're fucking Portugal, mate. Sit the fuck down. You're just a shit version of Spain. And I don't even like Spain. It's too hot. And it's full of Spanish. Like, keep going. That really, by the way, you almost saw there, guys. That's almost like what I am like in the green room. That sort of like rant about some side
There we go. That's it, dude. Well, you guys just got it. There's no cameras allowed in the green room for a reason, but you just got a little taste.
Mate, didn't that was to drive you mad? How every new event we did, so if we'd done E-League and they've never seen CS before, we do Starlight, people would always come in and say that naive line like, imagine if we could just put the cameras on it here, guys, and just film all of you. It's like, mate, we'd be cancelled like 5 minutes, you idiot. What are you talking about? Like yeah, in theory, but you're also wishing for a different world. Like, we can't put this shit on the camera.
No. There was some spicy days in that green room. Good times, man. Good times. Well, all right. I think this is probably a good time. We're already in this like on an RMR qualifier discussion, or we were like all over the place really about like just joining back into CS. But like, you want to revisit this RMR topic? I think you wanted to touch base on this, and then I want to pivot into the ESL 1x gaming or 1xbet partnership thing as well. Because we're on the topic of ESL. They're running the qualifiers right now. So we had the Switch thing. We had getting involved with Counter-Strike. Now, what's going on? Like, what is one of these issues with the RMR that we missed last week?
Yes, right. Obviously, we didn't
get anything wrong technically.
No,
it's
no.
about visas, right? That's the reason that ESL are saying they're running the RMR in What was it, Malta? No, Malta is
Stockholm.
EU. It's Stockholm for North America.
For the Americas one, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, basically the problem is this, right? Because on the last episode, that was a story that we just dropped in there and we haven't looked into. Like, this is where I'll break the fourth wall again. What people don't know is stories like that are Richard's specialty. That's more his world. I just know the basics of it to talk about shows, or if, like, I really don't like the person, like, if it's some ESL angle, maybe I'll look into it, you know. Obviously, that's more Richard's world. So when we'd have these shows normally, he not only has every detail and behind-the-scenes info, like the real things that are going on, but he also, crucially, he, like, sort of knows what points he's going to attack there, and he'll usually have them all set. Whereas the problem is when you brought it up, my take was a bit shit, like it was a bit shallow. I basically just said, like, well, if it's true that they can't get the visas and obviously you can't get into certain countries, then whatever, I guess you have to hold it where you can hold it, right? But actually, I was myself being a bit naive and I wasn't giving a deep thought to the topic. Because as Richard pointed out, and you can go and see this is where the whole tweet thread came from, if people don't know, about, like, I mean, eventually it came into, like, the flying DJ was arguing with him. I don't know, Apicella was coming in. Sean Apollo was coming in from ESL. Because, by the way, he's like the one. The joke is, he's like the one that can actually talk and isn't just universally despised. So you bring him in when you want people to like you. Like, I notice he often does the apologies, etc. It's a bit like that old Bill Maher joke about fucking George Bush. It's like, just let Tony Blair talk when it's you doing the coalition stuff. Just let him talk, mate. Like, you're obviously way better on camera than he. So, anyway, when they were having this back and forth, Richard made some very good points on Twitter, which is basically, actually, a lot of that doesn't fly. Like, the idea ESL can go, well, visas, so, you know, what could we do? No, actually, wait a second. Let's just examine that for a second. So what you're saying is you're holding an event where a team from Brazil, to qualify for the event in Brazil, have to fly to Europe and go to Stockholm. And not only that, a few weeks before the major, they have to radically shift their whole time zones, go play in a different continent, then come back to Brazil. Meanwhile, by the way, if you were from certain other regions, you'd actually have a better scenario on travel. That doesn't make any sense. Like, that is kind of illogical. Then add in the other detail, which he brought up, which is a very valid one, which is when you say that, like, well, visas, what can you do? I mean, you knew you were going to hold this event in 2020. By the way, the majority of 2020 was obviously affected by you know what, and we all had to go online, and visas became difficult. So I assume you already must have been looking into contingencies. What happens if we can't get visas for the players? When do we cancel the event? If you remember, they cancelled the event some mad, outrageous time, something like a month before it was supposed to be held, or something insane. I remember thinking, fuck anyone who's bought these tickets then. Like, imagine having flights and hotels booked. You're not getting that money back, by the way. That's just gone. So in that scenario, I already thought it was irresponsible, but they waited till the very last minute, presumably because they thought the event could happen. Then, the whole time, remember, the rumour was maybe last year the event's going to happen in Brazil. Didn't happen. It got pushed, and obviously PGL got Stockholm. So the whole time, ESL has been aware, we're next on deck. When we get a chance, we're next on deck. When Brazil's open, we're next on deck. So if you've been waiting for 2 years, and you've been waiting the whole time, you knew this was going to be a problem. What's actually happened, I think, is maybe you have left that till the last minute, or maybe something's changed and you haven't thought it through. And basically, despite the fact, compared to any other major ever, in theory, ESL could have had the largest ramp up. Could have been years at this point in time. They've had so many opportunities to look into this. Actually, it is a bit whack. Because here's the key point. It isn't as simple as, oh, it's visas. Because as people pointed out, there's different aspects. Like, maybe you could have held, maybe you could all meet in Mexico or something. Maybe there's islands you can go to. You know, there's certain islands where the certain status isn't the same for visas. The point is, there were potentially solutions, but it seems like ESL, because this is a classic ESL move. I don't know if you noticed this, Sam, we've often talked about on this show. All the TOs, when they work with Valve, because Valve doesn't tend to make public statements, they call that bluff every time. And what they do is they always say, oh, is there something you don't like about the major? Valve makes me do that. I have no say in that whatsoever. And because Valve never calls them out, they always get away with it. And ESL, by the way, are criminal offenders for that. ESL always claim everything is Valve's fault unless it's something good. And then they're like, yeah, we actually suggested that get included. Because that's ESL for you. It's just how they do things, mate. So my problem in this particular case is, like, I get the vibe. Once they realised they hadn't sort of done this that well, they'd fucked up some of the logistics. They were like, well, you know what? I mean, if we say visas, people know they're hard to get, so it'll be the ultimate get out of jail free card. We'll just say, whatever the visas, you know the world, guys. It's all bloody closed, isn't it? You know the old, what, you know what, last year, the old coof. And then that's like sort of, then they just rizzle-dizzle the way out the seat. Well, exit stage left. But actually, when you think about it, it does seem like they've sort of shortchanged the scene a bit. And especially if you're from this America's RMR, it seems kind of whack. And by the way, one last point. I thought the stupidest take of all time. So get ready, guys, in the Twitch chat. You'll probably want to type this directly in there and say that's your take, because you all have to disagree with me. The stupidest take ever was when one of those fucking reply guys tried to come in and jump into this debate where Richard was pointing out how fucked it up was to travel. And this is his real take. Right, look at these two scenarios I'm going to create. The scenario video we're talking about, Semler, is Brazilian team wants to qualify for major in Brazil, have to fly to a different hemisphere and continent, play there, then come back to Brazil. This is what he thought was a comparable scenario. He goes, yeah, but during PGL Stockholm, weren't some of the RMRs in, like Romania? So let's just go on a map. Romania to Sweden. Now let's do Sweden to... Is this a fucking joke? Like, how is that even comparable? That's not even... One of them's even in the same time zone, you twat. It's exactly the same. Like, it's going to be so close. It's a single flight. I mean, the real joke is it actually ended up... If people don't know, as a random aside, we actually couldn't have direct flights from Romania to Sweden because of all that shit with fucking Belarus where you don't have to fly over it. And they had that issue with the whole, like, where they'd landed that plane, hadn't they, and, like, forced that, like, guy into prison or whatever the fuck. So as a result, like, they actually literally ruined our trip. The point was, it would have been like a 2-hour flight or something ridiculous. Like, that's not even a comparable situation. So when I actually look back at it now, I do think ESL's sort of excuses are a little bit whack. It seemed like they didn't really try that hard. And then also, I actually do sort of agree, Richard. I think that is a bit unreasonable to expect the players to put up with that, especially when you are just sort of going, well, as usual, except they now did apologise. You never do apologise for it either, do you? Except eventually they had Apollo come out. There's the other thing I know. You know what, I said that, but I'm so right. If there's ever an apology, I don't even need to click it, mate. There's no way Carmack and Flying DJ's in there. As you see, it's going to be Apollo, who's spoiler. You never see him on anything in CSGO. He's always on StarCraft, mate. But magically, you see, we need someone who eats shit in StarCraft. Carmack's
He's responsible for IEM now.
I'm actually allergic to shit, so I can't eat that. And then the Flying DJ's like, look, I'm German, and I've already eaten loads of shit today because it's our culture. It's almost our culture and sexual identity, isn't it? Eating shit. But I'm full now. Also, that doesn't have whatever, like, I don't know, fucking, it's not, oh, sorry, it's not breaded like a chicken nugget, so obviously I couldn't enjoy that cuisine. Listen, that... It's not any. It's actually because he was a DJ guy that we. I don't know if you know this, but I actually have a secret nickname for the Flying DJ, and it is Scatman John. But that's more because of his past as a DJ. Obviously, he was in music, you know. It's not because that's who he is and that's where he does his business. So, continue.
Yeah, dude.
Whatever. Listen, ESL can get on this show till the end of time. I don't give a fuck, mate.
They will. I think like I'm gonna hop in on this one a little bit because the way that I saw it. The way that I saw this whole thing was that to be charitable to ESL, I know that's not popular, but sometimes I do try to see it from other people's perspectives. And so to be charitable to ESL, I think in their minds, they're probably thinking they need to maintain the integrity of the event more so than the location of the event. And so rather than take the risk, because you're right, we could go to Mexico. Mexico is actually one of the top destinations right now, just because it's easy to get visas and you can stay for 6 months or something like that. And it's totally legit living standard. If you're in like Mexico City or something, isn't too bad. You can be totally fine. I'm just saying,
if you were to catch, say, like flu-like symptoms, you could just go and immediately take hydrochloroquine and ivermectin. You'd be totally fine, wouldn't you? So
it would be totally fine. Actually, also
just throwing that out there. Just
vitamin D.
throwing that out there. Yeah, just throwing it out there. So
yeah,
you know, like everyone used to before. Before
but what was it? Shit. No. So like, I think rather than run an event because the problem is, so you can get the players there, but you need to have a venue. You need to have PCs. You need to be sure that you have a competent crew there who can actually run the event to make sure that it runs smoothly. Standards have to be met for the players now. The players expect a certain level of treatment in terms of catering, in terms of hotels, in terms of all that sort of stuff. So I'm just thinking, as far as ESL are concerned, for the Americas region, maybe this is being too cynical, right? Because it would have probably been different had it been the EU region. But for the Americas region, they're probably just saying, listen, we have this studio in Stockholm. It's going to be far easier,
they've done loads
far
of stuff
risky.
there. Yeah. If people don't know, they've done like the RMRs in Europe there. I think they did like a pro league there.
It's the old DreamHack studio. It's the old DreamHack studio, the DreamHack Monster studio back in the day. And then, you know, when DreamHack got wrapped into ESL, it became the ESL studio. And now it's the ESL studio here in Stockholm. But it's a great studio. And
I don't know if you said it on this show. I'm sure you said it somewhere else, like Twitter or something. But you had a fucking fire line that got so slept on. I was laughing my ass off when I remembered this. Your joke was they absolutely could have held the event in the US. All you do is go to Mexico and then you can just cross the border. Like, not only is that amazing, but then the other reason it's amazing is because I'm just imagining an image of like fucking KNG like trying to go over there being lassoed by one of those guys, like, you know that image, like, get over here, boy, like, that'd be fucking hilarious. I know.
Lassoed at the border, dude. Those poor cops. They've been
I know, it must be the worst job in the world, isn't it? I know.
Now, and they're still trying to come after him, even though it was all debunked. Oh man, fucking nightmare for those cowboy dudes. But Yeah, dude, it's obvious. It's just like just go to Mexico, walk across the border. There you go, and then you can catch a bus. I'm told you can catch if you're going through Texas, you can catch a bus up to New York too. It's all good. You know, then you're in the heartland.
Also, I haven't looked into it, but like I wouldn't even put it past ESL if, like, you know, obviously they used to be owned by MTG, a Swedish company. I wouldn't even put it past ESL if through like 15 shell companies, like that one quality hotel they keep holding the event in just like is owned by that company and they was giving themselves a discount and like tax write-offs or something. Like that's probably also on the fucking cards if you looked into it, if I had to guess.
There's all sorts of. I mean, it feels like this is. I just think that it's not worth the risk as far as ESL are concerned to try and put together an event, even with months notice, and like just the cost of putting together that event in South America for a qualifier when they already have a venue, they already have staff, they have production, they have everything they need to run an event here in Sweden. They're just like, listen, we're going to hurt some feelings. Moses is going to cry about it on Twitter, but fuck it. People are going to forget. They're going to be much more concerned about good CS and making sure the qualifier runs smoothly. It has a decent stream. They're going to be much more concerned with that than where the event geographically has taken place. So I think ultimately, you know, they were doing the balance, you know, and they're just like, yeah, fuck America. Like, we're not going to do it there, and we're not going to do it in South America. We're going to run it in a controlled environment, and we're going to go from there. And I think that's pretty much it. I legit don't think they expected to get any blowback on it. And if they did, then it was going to be that tactic of just like, oh, we'll just move on. I'm surprised Flying DJ, well, I'm not surprised Flying DJ needs to address anything that takes place with the ESL, but like, why didn't they just let it just blow by? Why address it at all and come out with like an apology or any of that? It's just like, don't even bother. The number of people who are getting worked up about this is minuscule, and people are going to be much happier just having an event run competently. They're going to forget about the whole geographic thing. It's never going to be an issue.
You are right, but the problem is, like, that is essentially the flame that they will never be able to fucking resist as the moth, as it were. Because basically, one of the biggest problems with the esports industry is it's one of the most incredibly narcissistic industries in the entire world. As in, everyone who works in the industry is obsessively talking about the industry. Even though to everyone who doesn't work in this, no one gives a fuck. That's the least important part. They just care about the games. So what happens is, famously, people at ESL do care about what people think on Reddit about casters or talent or what's going on with it. And to them, if there's a big Reddit thread of 300 comments, that is the end of the world. The skies don't fucking falling. Like, pants are on fire. Help, help, help. Get it out. Whereas what they don't realize is, yeah, you're right, Samuel. Half of these things, if you just gave it radio silence for 2 days, it's over. Like, people like me would be bringing it up, but that'd be about it, Like, beyond that, you could easily kill this with silence. But the thing is, though, I don't think they can, because essentially it's a way to make yourself more important again. Like, as fucked up as it sounds, even the fact that I must make a statement on it, like, that makes you already super self-important, doesn't it? Like, well, I must come forward and let the peons know why I must do this. Because what I love about the Flying DJ and ESL in general is the way they managed to like perfectly emulate that fucking sort of tone that like British upper class people have, where the whole vibe is like, look, you silly peons could never actually rule yourselves, you peasants. I must graciously dominate and rule you. I'm the only one who knows what's good for you. They always have that vibe when they're explaining. Like when ESL explains why they fucked up, it's almost like they're explaining why you're fucked up for thinking they fucked up. Like, and then the joke is at the end, like, but I accept your apology, fans, for why I
did exactly. I accept your apology. Thank you. I'm glad we could get past this.
Because nothing ever is their fault. There's always some fucking reason. Oh, it's because of this, because of that, whatever. Meanwhile, when Flashpoint fucked up, I would just go, yeah, we apologise, we fucked up, our bad. And then everyone's like, oh, look, he apologised, weakness. I knew it was shit all along.
Well, this is the we're going to just go ahead and follow that line, because it's exactly right. On topics that don't fucking matter, they will jump in on. Absolutely. On topics, however, where you get an entire write-up and journalists reaching out to you to address it and to get comment on it, there will be no comment. They are still our partners.
This is the other problem. Think about it, right? Also, these guys do come from the old days where they ran ESL, right? I'm sure now they try call up the head office like, oh yeah, people are saying some about us online, like, just shoot them all. It's like, no, you forget we're in the West, we can't do that. Like, oh, okay, well, call me again. Like, fucking hell, mate.
Call me back.
I guess that's what happens. So actually, compared to what, HQ's probably suggesting, Flying DJ's probably quite a reasonable person. His compromise is just to tell us what's happening on Twitter, not even shoot us or anything.
Can't throw us off a building, off a rooftop, or any of that sort of stuff. Yeah, fair.
But you have to understand, one thing they love at ESL is yes men. Now, Yemen don't like that. I know it's easy to. I know it's.
God, I can't bring that up. Right?
Whatever.
Oh, dude. I mean, Definitely don't mention it. It's not a problem.
No.
Nothing happening there. All good.
They're not even good at CS, so really, who gives a fuck about May girls? Just saying.
There you go.
Just saying.
I'm just going to go ahead and take a quick moment to plug Richard's articles. If this kind of topic is interesting to you, Richard has been doing some great work over at Desserto. He's been esports behind the Iron Curtain, and he addresses the Saudi Yemen, everything that's going on there. It's definitely worth a read. It's he's churning out the articles over there. He's doing good work. But one article that came out on Desserto recently by one of his compatriots was an article by Mira, where 1xBet, which is a gambling company essentially, that a Russian-founded gambling company with offices in Cyprus and a license that recently got canceled in Curacao. And so that's why there's a little bit of friction here, and it's well worth a check. We're going to throw this in the chat.
People think that's weird. Like, that's weird. Why would a Russian company have offices in fucking Cyprus, but then have work in Curacao in the Caribbean? It's like, the joke is, that sentence wouldn't even narrow down if he hadn't said 1xBet which company it was. Like, that's what they're all doing, because the joke there is, think about it, right? I'm a totally legit company. All right, okay, where are you from? Russia. I'm a bit suspicious of Russians. All right, I based it in one tax haven. Oh, okay, cool. Where are you based other than that? Oh, the other rest is in another tax haven. It's like, what's going on here? No, don't worry about it. Never mind.
Never mind.
Nothing to see. Like, that's
Do we
what all
owe
about.
anything?
Yeah.
Well, they recently lost that one tax haven, the gambling license. Apparently they lost that after they were unable to pay back their betting.
Wait a minute. You mean a betting company, Semler, wasn't able to pay back their customers? Because that'd be very, very relevant information if you were, I don't know, promoting to your customers that they use their betting company. That'd be really important for like a third party to know, wouldn't it?
You would think that. Apparently, there is no comment on that topic. ESL are still partners with 1xBet, but 1xBet is it was supposed to apparently even run out, as in the Katowice 2022 was supposed to be the last event that 1xBet was partnered with ESL. But quietly, there has been no new press release. There's been no new announcement of a renewed partnership.
By the way, that's a massive giveaway in itself. You know this, Semler. You always announce big sponsorships, of course. That's one of the number one things you do, not least because, remember this detail, when you're a publicly traded company, you want it to affect the stock price. You want people to go, wow, they've got new... Yeah, I hope they've... That's why if you don't do it, I know people missed that point, Semler. The fact that essentially secretly they re-up but didn't do it public, that essentially tells you they themselves had the guilty conscience. They know that this wouldn't go down well, and they didn't want this story to come out.
Oh, yeah. They can't. That's the thing. They're just hoping that nobody's going to be looking into this. It's all going to blow over. But there was a little bit of a rumbling not too long ago where, people were just like, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but this 1xBet company right now, they just lost their gaming license. We'll see how this goes. Well, their gaming license, their gambling license. They're also apparently tied to a bunch of other really scuffed stuff. I mean, check out the article if you really want the full story. There's quite a few details.
A detail I found very interesting, Samler.
What was that?
A detail right towards the end. This is also why we can't have nice things. Remember last episode how some of the petty grievances, or maybe it was 2 ago, were about Richard and Nomad going back and forth, and HLTV asking Richard stuff like, what about your integrity? And we pointed out all that past stuff. Oh, you're going to love this. Not only did they used to have the get rich fast fucking people, CSGO fast, but apparently 1xBet sponsors HLTV as well. Right, Semler, can you see the problem here, mate? Where a company that might be corrupt and is maybe defrauding its customers is sponsoring the website that I'm told is the hub of Counter-Strike and will bring me all the relevant news. So by definition, when they don't write the news, it must not be relevant. I don't need to worry about it. And I'll never find out if I'm on HLTV. That is called a conflict of interest. That is a conflict of interest, guys. They have a conflict of interest that they are paid by the sponsor and they would like to keep getting that money, and the sponsor might not pay that money if they do not continue to cover up the story, in this case, not write a story about it. So it's funny how people like good old Professor can come on Twitter and publicly speculate that maybe Flashpoint is view botting because we're running reruns through FaceIt on the FaceIt platform, something that ESL does. But when ESL has a sponsorship and your website has a sponsorship that might be defrauding your own fans, you have nothing to say. You have no integrity. You're a piece of shit. You're not only a piece of shit, even though you didn't directly get something for it itself, you've actually sold out because you've sold out your integrity. In this case, for almost nothing, but you sold it out nonetheless. So this is one of the reasons, by the way, why it's so tragic that Richard Lewis is leaving the space. It's even one of the reasons why I'm not surprised Mira's at Deserto now, mate. He's wasted too many times in the fucking salt mines HLTV. It's about time he got paid real fucking money, got real status, won some awards, because I tell you the other thing, all the good work Mira did, HLTV.org's got the credit, didn't they? No one even used to check the name of the person who wrote the article. You guys probably wouldn't even know all the fucking news posts that guy's done. So it's time for him to get his own shine. I'm glad he's out the fucking company, because he's actually a legit guy, unlike these wankers, because I'm just sick and tired of every story just leading back to HLTV as scumbags, something I've known for years. But if I bring up Semler, just like the simple angle, people go, ha, but you use their website for stats, and we all do. Well, so that means crime's just okay now, you fucking idiots. So I found this whole story so disturbing, because it does imply, essentially, people like ESL and HLTV, there is no limit. At what point does the limit kick in where they'll actually out someone who's corrupt that's working with them? It's never, as far as I can tell. In fact, now they're still covering it. They're still running interference for it now. They're just going to let it continue.
Well, you don't make a comment and you just hope for it to blow over. That's the strategy. You just don't address it. You don't
it will as well. Let's be real. Pro League's going on. No one's going to boycott it. We're all going to watch it. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And business is going to continue as usual. And once they figure that out, it's the same thing. Well, I cut ESL a little bit of slack, at least on the Saudi buyout, just because they're owned by MTG. MTG's been trying to shop them for years. So whoever was going to be the first buyer, it didn't matter. MTG was going to sell them to them. So I think ESL was a product there. I cut them just a bit of slack on that one because I don't think they signed up for it per se. I think they didn't really have a say. I think it was just, that's what's going to happen. And there you go. Suck it up. Face it, a little less so. But that aside, they understand that, like, I think the play now, the playbook is very much, if it's a spicy topic, you don't address it, you let it blow over. There's going to be a few people who are going to make some noise on social media. Doesn't matter. You just let it slide. And in the next week, there's going to be another story that's going to come along, and that's going to take everybody's attention up, and everybody's going to get up in arms about that topic, and they'll forget that you are, hoping that this other story goes away. And so that's why you do, like you say, you need journalists like Mira who are going to actually hold on to it, like Richard Lewis, who are actually going to hold on to it and try and bring it up. They're going to dredge it up. So when you hope that it's, fading beneath the surface, these guys are out there with their nets just ready to bring it back up again into the light so that everybody can see it again. And hopefully we'll see something happen. I mean, HLTV right now, if you go to their website, in case you're wondering, everybody, it's just this 1xBet website or gambling site is ranking by 1xBet. So the world ranking for HLTV for the CSGO teams is sponsored by this team. So that's in HLTV's link to them. And then obviously ESL, it's like it is.
By the way, there's another detail. Are you ready for the other one that's
now,
mental? This is going to blow your mind, Semler. People don't put facts together when they get presented with them. That's why you need people like Richard Lewis. Everyone always says about Richard Lewis's op-eds, like, why does he include his own opinion? Like, because he's actual expert, and so he's interpreting the information for you morons. If he just puts the facts like Mira did here, you don't get it. So I'll tell you another obvious part that's insane, Semler. Notice how before they say HLTV is sponsored by this company, they point out that a bunch of teams are. Did you just hear what I said? The tournament that the team's playing is sponsored by 1xBet. Teams that play in the tournament, only some of them, are sponsored by 1xBet. And then based on their placing in said tournament, they are ranked by HLTV.org on the 1xBet ranking. That is all conflict of interest. That is absurd.
There's also, I was about to say, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there bonuses? Like, I've heard of teams having bonuses tied to their rankings as well.
Oh, loads of them
you
do.
stand to gain. Higher you are up in the
I know
rank,
I might be out of this.
Bonus gets unlocked if you make top 5.
It's based on your,
top 10.
The HLTV placing is one of them. Going like top 8 at the majors, one of them. Obviously, winner tournaments, one. Yeah, all these things unlock bonuses in your contract. It's why, for example, famously, the Henry G contracts never were as big as idiots thought. That was like with some of those things built in. Like, spoiler, they didn't have to pay some of that out because they didn't win a bloody major, you idiots. Like, that was just the notice they even said it. He never even said it was salary due. He always said it was like value of the deal or whatever that term was. So that was even an area that got a bit lost there, but yeah, that's true. But you see what insane conflict of interest that is. Spoiler, HLTV.org's the person we need to report on that, but they're not going to do it, are they? This is why, if you don't get it, HLTV.org is a totally inappropriate place to be a journalist source. Like, for start off, they already lick the taint of every fucking pro player and team so they can get the interviews and the photos. So in my opinion, HLTV is best at what they used to do. Just report the roster moves, report basic things like upcoming tournaments and talent announcements, and keep it at that. Do some content on the side, don't pretend to be an independent journalistic outlet, though. You, by definition, are not. And they've repeatedly shown you cannot be trusted with the partnerships that you select. So, as a result, in my opinion, that's where they stepped over the bounds. Luckily now, to be fair, they don't try that much investigative journalism because it's actually Mira even doing that. So, to some degree, they're already sort of ahead of me on that one.
That's it. They're just going to fall into that kind of a rhythm and then keep moving along that path. And the journalists who want to provide that kind of content are going to go elsewhere, i.e. Mira going to Deserto and most likely, filling in for Richard over there. But I mean, it's worthwhile keeping an eye on things, and it is a point that's worth to discuss. That's worthy of discussion, and props to Mira for putting together such a great article. He does a great job. The points that he makes, you really have to appreciate this, where you can tell the difference between the journalists who put in the work and the journalists who are just putting together like, oh, here's a quick couple of paragraphs. It's like there's links to everything that he mentions. He's constantly backing it up with references and sources. So that's the kind of stuff that you really should visit and you should take a look at because it's worth your time. And there's going to be a little bit of detail for you to keep you in the story. So shout out to Mira for that work, and go and check it out. It'll be a link in the description. So
let's just do a quick break. I want to get a drink. Do you want to get a drink of water? Do a 5-minute break. There we go.
All right, let's go for a 5-minute break.
Throw up a screen and we'll do a 5-minute break.
We got a couple more topics, and then we'll be getting into viewer questions.
Yes. Now, obviously, among all the drama and all the industry back and forth and the shenanigans and the naughty banter, that should probably be timestamped, but isn't anymore. I'm going to give you a bet. I'm going to give you a CSGO bet. We're going to use Tether for this. Obviously, at the moment, they still won the World's Prediction Series 2 contest. If you want to enter that for free and play with DJT and potentially win hundreds of thousands of USDT. I'm doing real money here with USDT, the Tether, the bet. So what I'm going to do is, if we go, they've got all the games, League of Legends, Dota, CSGO. We're going to go to CSGO, obviously. We're going to isolate it to Pro League, which is the main tournament everyone's watching right now, and it's the main one that's going on. And in a few days from when this is being recorded, I'm going to show you the bet that I would actually like to make, which is I'm going to go and I'm going to take, in a few days from now, Na'Vi plays against Vitality. And even though I think Vitality will actually end up probably being the third best team, I'll talk about in this episode, and obviously they are a massive underdog, 2.518, to get Na'Vi at 1.497 odds for a LAN best of 3. There's very few teams you're ever going to get odds as high as that for Na'Vi, and I think they are going to win this series. And their map pool, the player strength, they've got simple back. I think they're going to win this one. So I've actually already done a bet on it, but I would suggest you bet on the Na'Vi side of this, bet on the favourite. Like I'll show you over here. This is one of the bets that I have already made. Who is this against? Na'Vi. That's against Ninja in Pajamas, Vitality. There we go. I've already done Na'Vi at 1.497. I did 1,000 USDT. I would get back almost 1,500 there. That's who I predict. Back to the show.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. Hope you guys went and grabbed a drink of your own. And now we're going to get into a few
Remember
more
to like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and fucking go on all the other shows on the channel. Look, there's not going to be any at the moment because Snake and Banner's coming back soon. It'll be one out this week. We'll see.
Snake and Banner is going to be out. Definitely. I mean, on your channel also on the side, definitely go and check out the Forest Reflections. Fucking straight fire. Second episode dropped today. If you're watching this live, you can go and listen to that afterwards. I listened to the first one, loved it. Forrest is always such a fun guy, so it's like just easy to talk to, it seems like, and you've got some good questions as well. So top drawer content, guys. Go and check it out.
By the way, don't you find it curious, Semler, that I've been told my entire CSGO career that I hate Forrest hates me, and that I would never have a chance of speaking to him? But it's weird, in the interview, we almost came off like people who knew each other, and I sort of almost knew some of his answers before he answered them.
That's
one
weird.
Of those mysteries. I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's one of
fascinating. Yes. Well, if you were interested in getting to the bottom of that mystery, go ahead and listen to the episode. It's over on Thorn's main channel. And also, big thanks to everybody who's leaving us reviews and likes and following on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. That's really sick. So it definitely helps. Leave a comment for the Algo God. Okay, moving on. Astralis hires another cheater is the header for this one.
Wait a minute, was this Groundhog's Day or something? And I take your little hand in mine and love you. What is this again? Oh, what is it? 2020 again? I think I've already heard this. Oh, his name was Ave, right? Or was it Hunden? Or
which one was it?
Well, mate, if you don't know, fans, they've hired another band fucking coach. This is mental, this story. Come on, hit me with it.
Well, dude, already it's just as far as the announcement goes. Astralis talent Castle joins as coach. Vigo leaves roster. This is the announcement, and it's 3 paragraphs long, super slick. As our Counter-Strike talent roster prepares for the upcoming season, a few changes came with it. So Madi has been replaced by Peter Toftbo Ardenskjold Castle. So we'll be relieving Madi. I gave it a shot, guys. I did the best I could. It's Danish. We also say thank you to the long and faithful service to Victor Vigo, who has decided to pursue another path, which we'd like to honor. So this is the thing. They're bringing this guy on as the coach for the talent team. And according to you, he has a history where he kind of got caught as well, didn't he?
According to me.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't actually know the backstory on this one.
In this article it says it, though.
Really?
I mean, no, it was said on Twitter. Someone said on Twitter. Richard said on Twitter, I believe.
Definitely not in the Astralis.
Yeah, it was. No, it's not.
I'm not going to bring that up.
Richard said basically that guy's banned. Like, I'll double check now. So his name was Castle.
Okay, he's on the banned list.
I'll be able to check if he is. Banned Valve. This will Google it. There we go. Let me have a look on here. What was his alias?
Castle. Casle.
All right, without a T. Yeah, he's banned. He was banned bug abuse. It ends after the second major of 2023. He was with the team called Maquinas at the time, which appears to be doesn't even have a thing on Wikipedia. So yeah, this is a banned coach. So basically, yes, to rewind, this is how it went in Astralis, right? Zonic technically did use a coach bug, but he didn't intentionally use it. Apparently, it was one of those ones that was just like an innocent one, and that's why famously he wasn't banned from the last major, and he was like allowed to fucking be like got like a fucking stay of execution or something on that one. Obviously, when Zonic was leaving the team, there was the story that they were trying to sign Hunden, who there was another story we addressed last week that actually they have signed Hunden. He just works with them on their AIM Labs project. And even though he definitely doesn't coach, an insider says he could be coaching, striker already. Well, is he or isn't it? Well, anyway, whatever. We know that fucking bozo's like off Sesame Street. So then, obviously, then we go to the next detail. They even said they'd give him a job afterwards, which even implies like he is working for us, probably is coaching. We won't say he's coaching, but we would give him a job as a coach. Suck my dick. Like, it's almost like that, the way they fucking replied to the story of Strauss. So then, of course, after that, we then have the situation where they then hire Dave, also a banned coach, if people don't know. After it didn't work out with Dave, they fired Dave and they brought in Trace, who was the academy team at the time, the talent squad one. He hasn't had any bans as far as I know. But now, not only was Hunden behind the scenes still working there, but now we find out that the new talent coach himself's a coach banned. Now, why is this relevant, you might ask? Because one, Astralis famously was one of the teams that Hunden used the bug against, and part of the response of that, it was actually the whole reason that shitstorm targeted the players, not just Hunden, was that Nicola Nyholm, one of the founders and owners of Astralis, actually went out there and basically directly called the players out, tagged them all, and said, like I want to see you in my office on Monday. And the mad implication even being, because Nicola Nyholm himself can't keep all the facts straight, is why would they know about your office? Oh, that's right, you used to own Heroic when you used to pretend to Richard that you didn't own Heroic at any point in time. Oh, it's almost like you feel like they're your players from a few years. Exactly. Like, the whole thing was so fucking pathetic, mate. So the idea that you're going to publicly call people out for using the bug and like imply they're like scum or something, and then after all that, you're going to hire repeatedly people who've cheated using that bug. Like, what it shows is, it's like the old joke about left-wing people, isn't it? It's like, yeah, of course they have double standards. It's the only bloody standards they have. That's the old joke with fucking Astralis, isn't it? So my joke, I used to say it on Twitter as just banter. Now it looks like it's real. As far as I can tell, Nicola Nyholm wasn't mad that Hunden cheated. He's mad that he was cheating against Astralis, not for Astralis. Like, now it almost looks like it's a prerequisite on your resume. You have to have cheated before these cunts will hire you. Like, look, I know Astralis is bad at fucking scouting, but just because someone's seen part of a demo, no one else has. Like, whatever. Like, I can't handle it, mate, because, like, this is already the greatest scumbag org of all time. I mean, listen, fair play. Nip's still in the fucking mix, giving him a good shout for it.
There may be some runner-ups there.
You've always got to give it up to the old champion, you know, until all the fights beaten out of them. They're still round, still a contender. But yeah, man alive, these orgs just, it never stops, the piss take, does it? It just continues. Because in this scenario, Semler, why is it even necessary? Hire anyone else but someone who was banned, you know what I mean? And also, I'll throw this in there. You're hiring people who are banned for cheating at the pro level to coach kids.
Yeah.
Do I even need to go into a rant on that?
No, you don't.
Come on.
I mean, we're talking about having appropriate role models, you know, for your how are you going to conduct yourself as a pro going forward? I mean, if anything, like, what do Astralis just subscribe to the saying, you know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying? You know, that's the message that they want to send to their next generation of pro players, where it's just like, yes, actually, you know, low key, we do actually encourage this behavior. And if you get caught, that's the problem. Or if you use it against us, that's the problem. But if you're using it, I mean, whatever you do, you know, like, whatever you got to do to win, get out there, champ. It feels like that's the issue. That's if anything, that's the real issue with this. It's just what kind of a message are you sending to your up and coming players? I mean, if you served your ban, if you've done a wrong and you've served your ban time, and I mean, then you should rehabilitation.
You
should
can have
come
a
back
job
into
again.
it. You can have a discussion about it.
Yes.
But if you're hiring people, if you're hiring players and coaches and et cetera, before they're banned, before they've served their time, to come in here, get out of here. Then that eliminates the idea of a punishment. There's no punishment at that point, and there's no redemption. So I don't get this whole angle from Astralis. Well, I mean, you do if you realize for them it really is just pulling out all the stops, any stop possible to get ahead and to do something because their stock continues to dip. The
Literally
value
and metaphorically, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it just continues to go off a cliff. So they're just.
By the way, the point you made is a
struggling.
really relevant one as well, because I had the same angle. The reason it's so silly that we're allowing other teams to hire people's cheating coaches is the logic becomes similar. The only person actually punished is the team that he originally coached for, because logically, your rival then can benefit from having him. Like, I even said this myself. It's funny, Astralis were the only ones who actually listened. I even said, look, this is all before we knew he'd done all the scumbag stuff. But when Hunden originally got banned, I even said, mate, I would just privately hire him, tell him he's not officially a coach, but just come in, scout my players, work with them, have coffee with them, and just tell him what to do. Like, I would have him off the books doing it because he obviously was mega at his job. He was a really good scout and brought up loads of players. Like, I'm amazed someone didn't do it. But the point is, like, of all the people to do it, you can't do it if you're Astralis in light of what we said, the precedent of what you've said publicly about this exact matter, and Hunden, for fuck's sake. Like, the whole thing's just
There are no
scandalous.
standards. There's nobody to hold anybody to those kinds of standards. It's all like snapshots. That's the real thing. It's like everybody's living in the present. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. It's all in that moment. So long as you pose correctly in that moment and get your good boy pats, then it's fine, right? You can let it slide. It's the way that ESL handle their PR. It's the way that all these guys behave themselves online. So long as you're in the moment saying the correct thing and behaving yourself appropriately, following the mob, then you're good. But you don't have to worry about there being anybody who's going to go back and try to hold you accountable or hold you to a standard, because clearly the community don't care, or they don't care enough. Or if they do, I mean, you're willing to run the risk that they do, even, because it's so often the case that it just gets swept under the rug or nobody really cares. There's no real noise made about it. There's no repercussions. The one case where perhaps there is going to be repercussions is like, ah, shit, you got caught. But it's almost worth running the risk regardless. It's a silly sort of situation.
Oh, by the way, there's one thing I've got to add, but it was technically from the last part of the convo. There was one angle we forgot to hit. This was the angle we forgot, because this in itself was, I even thought the inference from this was quite disturbing. You know, on the 1xBet story, right? That was one of those articles as well, Samla, where you can't just skim this article because there's so many facts and details.
Yeah,
and
you have to read it. It's very well done.
When you get to the very end of it, though, there's a line that everyone else just seems fine with. I can't handle it. There's a line at the end where it says they asked ESIC about this topic, and ESIC didn't reply, declined comment. As in, the Esports Integrity Coalition doesn't even have a statement like, we will look into this, or like, obviously, they don't have anything. And here's the problem, guys. Do you want to know when Richard and the others were trying to get the ESIC out there, their name out there, and get them a good rep and make people take them seriously? One thing they always stressed was there's this whole conspiracy theory that because one of the initial people who funded part of ESIC, and I think still fund them now, is ESL, obviously all the other TOs were worried. Maybe that's why I'm thinking out people like Blasters weren't involved. They were all worried. Maybe ESL secretly puppets them. Well, when you then find out ESL's been involved with a really dodgy sponsor that's done all this fucked up stuff, and then someone goes, well, Integrity Coalition, what do you think about that? And you go, I decline to comment. You've allowed every conspiracy theory to seem true. You've set the grounds where that does seem like a plausible scenario now. That's one of those reasons why I've never been able to fully get on board with that company as well. It's like, mate, you're either going to be the police or you're not. If you're not going to be, if you have topics you don't want to do, then shut up calling yourself Esports Integrity Coalition. The name, here's the thing about that name. You do not get given the respect from that name. You must live up to that name and you'll get the respect for it. You don't just come in from that. Because I even said the same thing, Rich, like, who the fuck is this Ian Smith guy? Like, first of all, the only Ian Smith I'd be interested in talking to is probably dead now, mate. Straight fire reference. And then secondly, all I'll say is this, like, this guy isn't even a guy I know from CS. He's not like a guy, like, it'd be one thing if, he'd run like ESL for years, or maybe he was the guy who brought FaZe shit in the city. That'd be one thing. That guy I could listen to. This guy's just a random guy who came along and started telling everyone what to do. I hate fucking woke scolds. I hate them. Anyway, I thought that was just a bit disturbing that, like, E6 apparently just turning a blind eye to, or just won't even give a comment.
I think you're bang on the money. And it's just, there's not enough skin in the game for actually. I mean, that's the thing. There's not enough skin in the game, and they run the risk of getting on ESL's bad side if they actually do anything. And ESL now own the CS:GO scene, and when the majority of your business is in CSGO, well, then there you go. It really just goes to show that there's so much power that's been accrued by ESL now. It's just worth mentioning. It's just worth pointing out. I mean, eventually, like, ultimately, it was the game that was being played in terms of the competition between the orgs. I always was a proponent of having that kind of free market competition. But what happens is that, well, what happened essentially is just that the money just became too big too fast. And so if you were able to get on top of that money, well, then it destabilized everything. Had it been normal competition between teams, going after sponsors and, the market kind of stabilized, like the price making, nothing upsetting the price, then it could have continued. But you get that cash injection, and it just completely throws everything out of whack. And now we're wound up with a monopoly. So, well, with a monopoly in essence, I mean, Blast exists at the behest of ESL basically, so long as Blast play along. I mean, Blast now, they're running their own game with the Abu Dhabi Gaming Conference themselves. They've got a 3-year deal there. They didn't waste any time at all going and getting their own deal.
By the way, I don't blame them. I even said
blame them at that point.
One of the first things I thought when ESL was bought by that company was, well, this is even worse because now we've all been totally unfair to Blast. Like, we've all treated Blast like some sort of pariah. By the way, I'll even give you a good one because you'll like this because you know the same world I do. I thought that was as disgusting a double standard of behaviour as that famous story in 2019 where a bunch of my friends who were big name casters came out and said StarLadder was like 2 months late paying them. Do you know the problem with that, fans? The same casters didn't tell you ESL sometimes would take 1 year to pay them. So what they were doing basically was just notice how, first of all, notice how it's always ESL who benefits from doing the same corrupt behaviour. And then secondly, they benefit in a really fucked up way. They now have a competitive advantage where they can just pay their people months and months late. You do realise if I can just pay you 6 months later and Semler has to pay you 1 month later, I have an insane edge over Semler. So you're already making the rich richer and just punishing the small guy. So in the same way, because Blast was too small and this was just a sponsorship, we all bashed them and said we won't work with them, you have to get rid of it. So they got rid of it. Then ESL just gets bought out lock, stock and barrel by the same evil fucks. And you're all like, well, too big to fail, so we'll allow it. Like, you're so feckless. Because here's the thing. I hope none of you people who have opinions like this actually talk politics publicly. Because when you talk politics, they should do this, they should do that. Well, what do you do in your space? In your space where you actually have some influence, what did you do? Just let the rich get richer and punish the small guy again. You're the dickhead who makes politics like it is, you morons. You're literally the people who ruin the world. I've always said this, mate. Usually the people who actually do the wrongdoing aren't the ones who spoil the world. It's the ones who allow it. That's the problem. You can only get away with so much yourself. People just, as widespread allowing this behavior, though, means the esports is incentivized to be corrupt.
It's in human nature to look out for oneself, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you're thinking about your own Skrilla, and is it worth standing up? Is it worth rocking?
To them, there's no upside. Yeah, exactly.
There's no upside. There's no risk. No return on that.
It's funny because this is exactly the same argument that used to actually also be used back in the day about the cheating thing. Look, most people, I'll tell you straight up in the scene, didn't think people cheated, or they only thought the odd player like Flusher did or something. It wasn't very widespread, the idea there was cheating. But there was actually people who I have had conversations with in the industry that used to make my eyebrows just go up, like, what the hell? Like, and their take for real was, what if there's too many cheaters? Wouldn't we have to just shut the whole scene down? It's better we just let them get away with it then. And I remember being like, I'm obviously different to you, mate, because I am a hellfire and brimstone guy. I'm like, burn them all to the ground if they're in. My joke. I even had this joke, by the way, when the coach ban happened. I was like, this is some Sodom and Gomorrah shit, mate. If there ain't 10 good people in esports, burn it to the ground. Fuck it. It's over. It needs to be cleansed. Like, we can't continue this scene. So I'm of a different take, but a lot of people think the same thing as you, Simba. Like, essentially, if the net consequence is too big, then shouldn't we just sort of like all agree to turn a blind eye? Like, can't it just be business as usual, guys? Don't rock the boat, all that jazz.
Sure, that's that. Why not? Why not? It's there's no point in there's no principle, like dying on principle. That's not a concept anymore. So it's interesting to see how it's just interesting to keep tabs on it and to see how it keeps progressing through. I mean, there are people who do make noises, and there are definitely, it's not all black, but it's something that's worthwhile to keep an eye on. I think now, mate, is probably a good time to start actually getting into some of the questions, the GROGcoin questions, because we were kind of like run a little low. I mean, we could touch on Pro League a little bit if we wanted to get in on these, get in on it. But Pro League there's 4 weeks of 5 weeks of Pro League. Like, it's going to be going for a while. So I think maybe we'll save Pro League we'll save it. We'll have a proper chunk for Pro League next week after Group A plays out with Navi and the likes. Because I mean, Navi are pretty sure Navi are just going to smash that group. So we can sum up Group A next week and then talk about the rest of Pro League and give some thoughts on how things have been shaping up because they've already experienced some tech difficulties from what I can tell. They hired the PGL audio guy, so
that's obviously a joke, but yeah.
Obviously a joke, but it doesn't seem like he's running as smoothly as ESL hoped there. But let's go ahead and just hop into some questions here.
By the way, that even though you're joking, I do actually wonder about that in myself because apparently the problems are going on the Malta side, right? And that's one area because if people don't know, ESL's original plan 2 years ago or something is what they're doing now, which was they wanted to move Pro League and other things to Malta. And the idea is players would play in Malta and then the staff would be like in the fucking Katowice studio and you'd do this. And then remember, it was going to be like they did last year where they announced like, it's only when you qualify, you'll go to the studio to play the games. Before that, it'll be like on, and then we're going to have this whole system, right? Well, I even wondered the same thing. It's like, guys, Malta isn't like Germany, right? Like it's not going to be as simple to run things. Because I'll give you a mad example. When I did that event years ago, the one where famously like the fucking gazebo thing like fell down on me, remember that fucking tent thing fell on me at the beginning, the ESG Mykonos one with Red Eye and Lurpes. Like two things. One, famously, the opening for that, we were actually in a real helicopter. And by the way, if Kobe had already died, I'd have never gotten in that thing. Because I was even thinking the same thing then, Sam. I was thinking, if I die, I'm dying next to Red Eye and Lurpes in a fucking helicopter at a CS event. What a whack way to die. Your conscience just going out. While someone's like, did you know... What about Elon Musk? And then the other guy's just like, I'm savage, I've been wrecked. Oh, I'm in a wreck. Oh, bloody hell. I'm dying up. I tell you, lads, he got three of us. Is that a 3K or 3-piece? What do you call it? Is it COD? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. So the point is, it would be funny, but not for me. I'd be dead. And then secondly, the point I was going to make was that event made me wonder about places like Malta, though, Samler, because when I went there, if you don't know, Malta basically is like if the Italians had an island, but then that had British culture in it for some weird reason. So I went to Mykonos, right, a Greek island. And on this island, mate, they could never get the logistics of the event to run, because I'll tell you why. Because when you would get up and you had to go to the event for 10 a.m. and the first game would be at 11. They kept hiring this guy who just ran like a local cafe and telling him like, right, we're going to need a bunch of cooked breakfasts in the morning. So you cook like a bunch of, like full English breakfasts and bacon sandwiches and send them over, right? And then they would keep coming at 1 p.m. And we were contacting this guy, like, we need it for breakfast. And he was like, yeah, when I wake up, I do. And like, dude, I could totally imagine, because it's like a sleepy island. This guy's just getting up, like, he's walking the dog, he's coming out, pushes a broom around a little bit at 10. Then, he has his like cappuccino, just looking out over the hills. He's not even looking at a clock at any point in time. He smokes a whole cigarette all the way down without ever tapping the ash. And then at about 12:30, I bet he goes, right, let's better make these breakfasts. And it's like, mate, we needed the breakfast 3 hours ago. Like, this doesn't work. So like, I could imagine the same thing. Like, you're not going to have like world-class tech people necessarily. You're probably just going to have whoever's local that you brought in.
Well, the internet is notoriously spotty on Malta. You're on a fucking island.
Yeah. So I had the same thing. It could either be amazing or it could be dodgy. Yeah.
If there's a storm rolling through. It's a cool
place to go, I'll say. If anyone ever wants to go for a holiday, it's a pretty legit spot to go. It's pretty banging.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah, the history there as well. I mean, it's going to be one of the
because of the British influence, everyone speaks English. Don't worry about that. They'll all speak English.
Legit. Okay, Thorn, tour guide, helping out. Good stuff. All right, let's get into our questions then. So, GROGcoin questions for all the GROGcoin holders out there. And the rules as far as the GROGcoin, was it 25 coins?
I think so, yes. Yeah, if you go to the lounge channel on the Insight and Esports Discord, you'll see how many it is. There's a thing pinned there that tells you how many to buy and how to do it.
Exactly. So
put your questions in BTN questions channel if you've done it.
So put a link up into the chat for the Discord in case you want to get involved. In case you have any questions, these are for the GROGcoin questions. So kicking it off, Butt Pounder 420, already right out the gates. Where do babies come from?
Interesting question, technically, isn't it? Because the problem I have is this, Semler. Dude, am I missing something? Or is it so weird that no one actually thinks that's an interesting question in real life? Have you noticed that? Like, to me, by definition, the idea that like another complete life form like you and me, that in theory can grow up to have the same theory of mind, that spawns just out of someone's body. Like, what I can't understand about that is how that's like not like the biggest news in the entire world, the most important thing that everyone's obsessed. Instead, it's the opposite. We're supposed to think that's just incidental. It's even almost implied, like it's almost just like seeds inside a pomegranate. So it isn't at all like that. It's genuinely the greatest miracle you could ever imagine. That's why, in my opinion, I actually think this whole topic about like abortion and family planning is actually it's such a distraction, dude. Because in my opinion, bearing in mind, no one can ever actually know, right? This is the one that makes the child. This act sex. You can't really ever decide it. So in my opinion, the way better way to do it, funnily enough, was actually already nailed by religion. You just try and then you just pray. And if it comes, you view it as a gift from God. Spoiler, if you think it's a gift from God instead of something you just generate out of your body, you're going to be way more likely to treat it with value, to think like, oh, here's another angle. You're going to think if it comes from God, it isn't mine to just abuse and treat how I want. It's not my property. I better raise it correctly. It is my responsibility to raise one of God's creations. And I actually think that's a way healthier worldview in the world. Like all this shit now where everyone's on some doom shit, like we need to remove the population and kill all everyone. Like, you fucking moron. That's the opposite what you need to do. Why would you let anyone even tell you that, for fuck's sake? So the answer is, I have no idea. But to me, the fact that other people are cool with not knowing and think it's just it's like a decided matter is so alien to me. It's the great, like I say, it's the greatest possible thing that can happen in the world. It's just spawning new life.
And I guess if you view the world as fallen, right, then the person who runs that world, or the thing that runs that world, would want you to not consider it to be a special thing, right? The act of giving birth and creating another human, it would be the opposite in fact. And the way that some parts of the Western culture are going right now would be actually according to plan, because at that point, then
think about what I just said. If a child really was a gift from a god, whatever god, some sort of higher force, then by definition, to kill it would be the ultimate rebuke of that force.
Dude, that's the whole point.
Like you say, yeah.
There you go. You get to move on, and you get to give your sacrifice to the demons, and yeah. There was literally that story recently of, I don't know if we mentioned this on Last by the Numbers or if it was a time before that. I can't remember off the top of my head, the actress who was literally standing on stage, the Oscars. She was like, the only reason I'm here today and the only reason I have this award and this career and everything is because of my abortion.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was that.
So are we just
some famous? It was like some like Scarlett Johansson type person, wasn't it? Someone like really famous who did that?
Yeah, it's like a proper big name star. Shit, now I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Of course, when you try to pull it out of the ether, haven't thought about it for a while. But it was just like that one moment where it's just like, oh, wow, the mask is slipping. Where got to be careful here. We're getting a little too close to just child sacrifice again. It's all over the place. So yeah, but it is a good question about Pounder 420. One that is definitely worthwhile taking a look at. Oh, Michelle Williams, that might have been it. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there we go. That makes sense. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Romper Stomper. Good name. All right, IWD. The trend of top casters like Henry, Papa Smithy, Moses, and Jat transitioning to coach or GM roles seems to have slowed down. With the hindsight you now have based on previous departures, what factors would make you encourage or discourage broadcast talent to make such a transition? I think. Well, do you want me? I can go first on this one. I think because right now,
go first.
I think it really depends on culture of the team. In fact, like you need to have it really depends on like who you're working with, because I think if you're going into a North American team, what Moses ran into is that Liquid at the time essentially just wanted a cheerleader behind them. They didn't necessarily want to have a coach. So I think it really comes down to the culture of the team. And there's only a few coaches out there who have really managed to set that culture. Zonic, comes to mind, right, as being like, I'm the boss, I'm the I have the vision. We're gonna do this. Like he's gonna pull the strings and set it all up. Whereas if you're coming from the caster side of things, I think it's very hard to execute that well, where you're going to get the respect from the players, because it can be remarkably difficult to maintain the respect of the players when you're doing a broadcast, because players can be thin-skinned in the sense that they may not like the fact that you're criticizing their performance.
Think of that petty grievances part. Exactly.
Go ahead, sorry.
Just think of the petty grievances part at the beginning of this episode.
There you go.
Exactly. Yes. So
that is definitely something like a problem that runs into it. It's like maintaining respect with the players, I think is really difficult. It's really hard to walk that fine line. So unless you're really stepping back, almost like Henry did, where he's just like, I am now going to be like, I'm going to fully step back, fully disengage, and I am going to take on this project. It's my project. I own it from top to bottom, and really, execute and all that sort of thing. I think it's very difficult to go that path. And it's much easier to make very good money being an analyst or a caster or a host or any of that sort of thing beyond the broadcast than it is to be a coach. Because a coach, there's no security. You can get booted from 1 month to the next. You can be gone. So if you have a good gig rolling, where you're a respected top tier analyst, let's say, in the scene, and you're signing multi event or multi month long deals with the TOs, I think there's much more security in that than there is in coaching. So it really almost has to be a calling for you to want to become a coach and actually try to make that work, because otherwise it's much easier work and money being an analyst and doing that job than the other. What do you think about it?
I have a whole bunch of takes on this. So, like, first of all, I think the major reason that a lot of those moves don't work is because if you look at the pretext for why the move took place, it's not that their dream always was be a coach or a general manager. It's that they're sick of the current job they have because it's reached like a creative impasse. So I can tell you, all those people you just listed, Jap was just a commentator on the LCS, and had done some design work for Riot. There was nowhere higher he could go. Papa Smithy was a top commentator doing the Korean stuff, doing the national tournaments. He'd already done all his worlds. Like, he actually saw there was nowhere else I can go, so I'm going to try something different. Moses was sick of the casting world. Henry was sick of all the drama, and obviously he'd had all that shit going on in his personal life. Like, in this scenario, essentially the problem is, if you're drawn to something, then it will be like you'll be magnetically drawn to it. You'll be doing everything you can to succeed. It'll become your life. If you're just running away from something else, then you might not give it the proper college try. You might not be doing it in good faith. You might even be doing it just thinking, at least it's not that. And that's not the same as being like, remember, in my opinion, coach or general manager is like a lifer job. It's like, I'm going to be in Counter-Strike my whole life, possibly, if this works. Like, I'm going to be like a sports coach where I've got 30, 40 years of experience. That's why I'm the best scout. That's why I know how to coach these guys. You have to basically commit to it. It ain't just a gig like, I'm going to do this for 1 year. And then another problem I have is, because of their status in other games, like they're at the top of their field elsewhere, they also, this is why I know they didn't really want to be a coach or a general manager, they also only do it because it's an amazing offer. So they're starting their first ever job in a new line in their field with one of the highest jobs, massive scrutiny, massive amount of money to waste, enormous expectations. That's already a recipe for disaster. Other coaches don't come up like that. Other coaches all have to start with a smaller team and earn their stripes and then coach a couple of others. And you don't just get granted like the best team in the world. That's what happens to these talent. Because they're amazing commentators and analysts, they just get given the best team in the world. And then people wonder, why did they fail? Because they just started as a coach. They're a rookie. They don't know anything about that. And then there's another detail. People still think, because Reddit people are so obsessed with the idea the game is only tactics, they think if you understand the game, then you're an amazing coach. That's fuck all to do with the game, you morons. Half of coaching is like getting buy-in from the player, being able to have him respect you, like you say, that he'll listen to you, help two players communicate who are at an impasse with what they're saying and they conceptually don't know what each other's talking about. It's why when I say the following thing, everyone always laughs. I'm like, what a fool. Imagine asking you. I've been asked by major winners to become their coach in CS. That's a fact. I've been asked, this is on record, Fnatic in League of Legends asked me to be their LEC coach. That's real. It was in 2015. Now, the reason why these people asked me had nothing to do with being an expert about the game. It was that the difference is, you guys don't know this because I tailor how I speak depending on who I am speaking to. Well, the difference is I'm actually one-on-one mega at talking to players. I know how to relate to them, get through them. By the way, I've had my own fucked up past and my own problems with things I've overcome, so I'm often able to like show people where there's a communication leak or you're not understanding this concept because he explained it in a way that you didn't get. Here's a reference you will. Like, that's where my strength will come in. So basically, one of the problems is you're getting a lot of people like Henry G knows everything about tactics. Moses knows loads about being a pro. Is he an amazing coach though? I have no idea. I've never seen them in a context where they had to display those qualities. I don't even know to what extent they have in that sense. So they're also making the mistake, the fallacy of thinking because they're good at one thing, they're amazing at something else. So unfortunately, I think they get themselves into a bad spot there. In my opinion, not only should you not be offering that gig to that person, but you have to in this case because they won't leave the casting gig otherwise. But if you start out, I actually think you should start out with a reasonable project. Like, here's the difference. If I was Moses, I'd much rather, like, he wouldn't want to do this, but instead of Team Liquid, where the expectation is you've got to get us back up to #1 in the world, he should be coaching like Complexity's team now, like a bunch of young up-and-coming guys, no experience. He could do mad work with them. And then if he shows his chops, then he maybe gets the next gig up. Maybe then he goes and he coaches like, I don't know, then he coaches the real Team Liquid squad when they're now like the 15th, but you know what I mean? Like you work your way up. It's the same in football, by the way. It's very rare you just go from being the top player to the top job. You usually start as someone's assistant coach, you earn your badges, do all the courses, you go to like a lower league, you have some success, then you get the big offer from your old club that you used to play for because you're a legend. But you have to be legit too. And then the last thing I'd say, because you nailed it, is the biggest mistake they make, Semler, is they think that the respect that they got from that pro when they were the biggest caster in the world and walked into that bar at fucking Cologne after IEM Cologne, and that guy's, hey, how you doing, Henry? Oh, love the cast, mate. Great job. What do you think we should do with our team? Should we bring in there? You think that same respect and relationship's going to be the same when you're his coach? Nah. Now you're his boss. Now there's a totally different respect. And you know what? As soon as you start making decisions he doesn't agree with or don't vibe with, he's going to maybe even be shitty to you. He's maybe not going to respect you. He's maybe even going to say, oh, yeah, sure thing, boss. Then like you'll see him and a Steam message will open up and he'll be writing to fucking Elise, like, get this motherfucker out the team like we did Twists or whatever happened in that team. You know, just fucking, obviously purely hypothetical there. The two names, any likenesses to people alive or dead, like Twists, are entirely coincidental. No, anyway, you get the point though. Like, you actually cannot guarantee that buy-in will be the same, mate. That's the one angle I also think they misunderstood, because people don't get this. On a lower level, the things that happened with Stewie and those, that's also what was happening to people like Moses. Oh, don't worry. Yeah, they were sometimes being disrespected. They were sometimes being left out. They sometimes knew maybe I'm getting squeezed out by players. That's just the gig you're in. And there's another part that I think people like Moses and Henry didn't understand. If we're all in the bar again and we're doing different jobs that don't directly connect, Semler, we can even laugh about that. Oh, you won't believe this. We were just fucking dicking around in scrims, but we still won the game anyway. Get the next experience. That's not a funny story when you have our coach. Now all of a sudden it's like, what? They go unprofessional. Like, that's the problem. It's such a different relationship. You're not going to have the same dynamic you do. So you're going to think they're all going to respect me from day one. It's the opposite. You got to like establish yourself, win them over. So I think personally, in general, it's a super troubling path. And as I say, I suspect they only tend to do it because they want to just go over and do that. Because in my opinion, if you were really serious about it, like my future is I'm a coach, even if you did fail the first gig, you'd go get another one. You'd jump back on the horse, wouldn't you? So I've always thought the whole thing was kind of a bit like I don't think that's properly being done in the way people think. In my opinion, it'll be like 4 or 5 years, and then this is how it'll be. In the future, what will happen is it won't be talent as much. It'll be more people like just essentially IGLs will just become the coaches and GMs of all the big teams. I think that will be the talent route, because they already check so many of the boxes I'm talking about, don't they?
I think you're right. Yeah, they'll
I
have
think
the
talent's a bit
experience.
overplayed. I even think, by the way, the talent are all naive as well. They all think it's going to be better than being a caster. It's like, it's not. Like, unless Henry had actually won a major, I don't think it would have been as cool as being the best caster in the world. Same if you're Sponge. You might like the idea of having a team, and you could sign JKS and all your mates. Yeah, but it'll get really boring when they're just the 11th best team and you're just grinding your life away for no fucking credit, mate. It's a lot cooler to just be like, wow, amazing cast, by a moron who doesn't even know, you know.
That's exactly it. The bar is so much lower because there's the reality of competition is that either you're winning or you're losing, and if you're losing, there's going to be a fucking problem. You're going to have to come up with something real quick, lickety split. Otherwise, you're going to get the boot. Whereas if you're casting, maybe you can go cold on casting for a while, and you're probably still going to be getting gigs. So it is one of the things, actually. You know, it's like one of the things that makes it difficult to judge performance in casting as well. I mean, competition, it's easy. You look at the scoreboard, you look at the results. It's very easy to get to the bottom of like what's working and what doesn't. Whereas with commentary, much harder in some sense. But yeah, that's neither.
No, I agree. Put it this way, my joke, because in my field it's the same. Obviously, it's just about popularity in the field of media and journalism, isn't it? So the joke I always say is this: on some fucked up level, Sam, I wish there was a score in my field, because it's like I actually go out there and I score 60 points in an NBA game, but then a fan just goes, "No, you didn't. You scored none." It's like, oh, brilliant. Well, and they just turned off the scoreboard, like, brilliant. Oh, so everyone's just going to say I scored none. Cool. That's my life. Sound.
Terrific.
You know, the sad thing is as well, sometimes I wish I wasn't someone with integrity, Semler. Because, like, for example, I could just shit on all these fans that have told me I have no game. If I just told them which major winners asked me to be their coach, already, like, that's like taking my dick out and just slapping their cheeks about, like, the fucking gumball at you. Like, that, same as that story I told you before. Like, you know, you were mentioning that Forest interview. Yeah. So I've had 10 years of people telling me I hate Forest, you'll never get an interview with Forest. Then I've had 5 years of people telling me, because I said Forest isn't the GOAT of 1.6 I thought Neil was. You just hate Forest, and only a hater would say that Forest wasn't the GOAT. The whole time, for 5 years, I've known Forest himself thought that, and he told me at an after party. But because I'm legit, I never revealed that information. Suck my dick, you haters.
Well, there you go.
Whatever.
Don't give into the
Next
dark
question.
side just yet, okay? Don't give into the dark side just
Next
yet.
question.
Architect of Korean esports based Joe. In terms of NAFPS history, who would you rank higher as of today? TenZ or Stewie2K?
Right. NACS history.
NAFPS history.
Oh, right. It's because he says FPS, so he's counting the fact that TenZ was like one time like considered like the best Valorant player. Like
Right.
the problem with that is this. TenZ didn't like. It's not like he had that much success. It was like it was still like what, a year or so, year and a half. He was that good. So the problem is it's in the beginning of a game as well. So I know what you mean. Basically, the angle is if he's like the simple of Valorant for a year, but then Stewie2K was like a role player on teams that won. Obviously, you can weigh it up, right? The problem I have with that is like CS:GO was a way bigger game with way more competition. Stewie2K came along, quite frankly, slap bang in the middle of it. Not when it was easy. Did go to the top. Like, look, obviously, I think he was a role player on the teams he won the Grand Slam and the Major with, but he still did a good job. So I would say overall, like individually, maybe TenZ had a higher peak, but as an actual career, it's got to be Stewie2K. That's a pretty easy one, in my opinion.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I have to side with you on that one. All right. Snake. No, wait. I'm skipping ahead here. BZ. If we put 1.6 and CSGO together, who are your top 5 player peaks? Problem is that I'm not as well versed on the 1.6
you want a
side of
1.6
things.
guy, sure. Let me think.
As far as CSGO is concerned.
Because obviously Simple's like immediately on there already. I can put that one immediately. So Simple and CSGO would be on the list. That can go
right.
there.
Get right CSGO. Beginning of CSGO. Early
right, CSGO. Yeah, he had a number of years as well. Those two. And
that's the thing. You can put it. He can go across
too.
both. He transcends it, right?
Yep.
So
he deserves both. Yeah. If we're going off raw peaks, I would maybe say Marklov for 1.6. I thought he had a very good 2010. He was unbelievable there. That could go in there.
Okay.
Is there anyone else from CSGO deserves to be in here?
I mean, are we going to get lynched if we don't mention ZywOo?
The problem is he hasn't had enough at the tournaments though. Like he's got a good body of work, but even then, 1 year was on LAN. We maybe had a year and a half on LAN. He hasn't had enough, in my opinion, not long enough. If I was going to pick someone else from CSGO, I'd maybe pick Nico. I think that's the other one I would maybe pick.
Okay.
But his peaks, I think he's been unbelievable as a rifler. Let me see. That's 4 names, and I'll go with Neo then. We'll just put
there.
Neo. We'll go Markov, Simple, Nico, Get Right, and Neo. Pretty good 5.
I think that's good.
Can't go wrong with that.
All right, Oskvi. Do you think that G2 or Vitality will improve to be a legitimate title contender for the Rio Major, as in having a similar chance to win as FaZe and Na'Vi?
Who was the team?
G2 or Vitality will improve to be a legitimate title contender for the Rio Major.
I think Vitality will be. Like, in my opinion, Vitality already look like they're this close to be. Like, I actually think, essentially, in a few months, I think Vitality will be the number 3 team in the world behind Na'Vi and FaZe. I think they look like they've got the pieces to do it. The G2 one looks a lot more fraught, because the problem with the G2 one is everyone's obsessed about the Huxley JKS angle, but what actually won them the games was just Monacy popped off like old Simple. Like, he was a fucking... So the problem there is, like, that's like, you've still got the leaks in the ship, but you've just turned on a fucking another tap. So it's like... Which is it? Like, I'm still leaking, but I'm getting more water coming. So I feel like there's so much talent in G2, they could do it, but that one looks a lot more uncertain. The Vitality one, I think, is just tracking really nicely to be really good. Like, Spinks looks great, and that team already, mate.
Yeah, Spinks looks good. Apex continues to improve. Zonic looks like he's getting more comfortable. I mean, it feels like Vitality could be actually coming together. The G2 side of things still leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, JKS posted a negative rating for this event. So, I mean, first event, all that, but you do kind of hope for with like a honeymoon period.
Yeah,
that there's going to be a little bit of an overperformance, and so not getting that overperformance is kind of concerning. You're just kind of wondering, how are things going there? And then Hooksy kind of just, I mean, same, like didn't really see a noticeable bump from him either in terms of individual output. So I like when you're dealing with teams like FaZe and Na'Vi and even Vitality, or it's like where everybody is a threat on that team. There are no weaknesses in terms of individual performance that you can exploit. It really does leave you wondering how a team like G2 is going to compete going forward. Like, it really makes you question the decision making behind these roster moves. So, we'll have to see how that pans out. But yeah, Vitality, I could get on board with Vitality. I still feel like they have to work out some of the kinks in terms of culture, just getting everybody, like really dialed in on that team. It still feels like perhaps there could be a little bit of a lurch there, but now they've had enough time perhaps to start ironing those out. So we could start to see that peak coming if they've managed to make it through the bumpy period. Because I definitely feel like they went through some growing pains there. But maybe after the break, they've had time to reset, recharge, and they're going to be fresh coming into it. And Spinks can bring a little bit of revitalize them. There you go. All right. Mini idea. You once said that those who find value or good in living in VR forever miss the point of the world they're currently living in. What's the point of the world, especially for those who suffer in it?
I assume he means you, right?
Is that
did you say that on your stream about VR? I've never said anything about VR. I don't think ever.
Did we talk? I think we talked about VR last week. Where weren't we talking about Fahrenheit 451? How the future is essentially like we're already like it's not. Maybe was this on my stream that I talked about this? I talked about like I remember talking about this where the VR, the way that like the reason why VR is not going to catch on the way that it's set up now is because it's just too cumbersome to have something on your face. And it's still just too annoying. Where I think the direction that we're going to go in is Fahrenheit 451, where they're just going to continue to make as screens get better and better, they're just going to make the screen walls. The room is going to become the screen,
right?
And we're just going to wind up as like Fahrenheit 451, where you just go and sit in the TV room, and the whole room is a TV basically, and you're just in that sort of space in that sphere, and that's going to be the future. I feel like rather than having something that sits on your head. So that was a conversation that I had not too long ago. So I wonder if that's what he's referring to. But what's the point of the world, especially for those who suffer in it? It's like if you, I don't think if
here's
you
one thing I find weird, dude. Have you noticed how it's always framed that there's nothing that could ever be like meaningful or positive or significant about suffering? It's already just assumed it's all negative and it should never exist.
Yeah.
I don't get that because as far as I can tell, suffering is actually sort of a feedback that like essentially something's hard or it's like an analogy, like the obvious analogy to give would be you just give one of those famous quotes, like, if you want to like fucking polish something, you have to wear it down to do so, don't you? If you want to sharpen iron, you have to fucking hit it, don't you? Like the point is, if you want to make a sculpture, you have to destroy everything that's not the sculpture. Like all these metaphors exist for a reason. As far as I can tell, suffering is like part of the transmutation process from one phase to another. So what I would say essentially is try and make it meaningful if you suffer. Try not just make it just for no reason whatsoever. And also, depending on what the situation is, the problem there again is suffering such a general term. Is what does that mean? Does it mean someone's being worried?
Like what kind of suffering are we talking about?
Are you in a gulag getting whipped? Like obviously we can't know the situation here is. So like as far as I can tell, that's just people doing a reply guy thing. Like so if people suffer, then how can life be worth it? Because everything except the suffering's awesome. And even the suffering can be meaningful. In fact, wasn't that even what everyone raves about in that one fucking Viktor Frankl book about man's search for meaning?
There you go.
It's the notion that like being able to like overcome that in itself becomes a sort of task. Basically, it's like the Camus myth of Sisyphus, isn't it? Like the very act itself can be worth it. Even suffering itself can have its own relevance, its own worth in and of itself.
There's a couple of quotes that really make me think of that book in particular, and so one of them is those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Right, so already there, and then you can go down where it's just like everything.
What was that? ESL's owners or something? What was that?
Yeah, right, exactly. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So. I mean, that's the thing. Or when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I mean, Viktor Frankl, his backstory is that he literally lived through the concentration camps, lost his wife, but it was the thought of being able to be reunited with her and to have that meaning that carried him through. And eventually, he was thinking through all of these things while he was suffering in these camps, and he eventually came out with a book called Man's Search for Meaning, which I highly recommend. It's an excellent read. It's a short book. If you struggle with longer books, you don't have to worry. It's a short book. It's short and sweet and to the point, and it's well worth the read. But that is it, where it's just even in the darkest places, there can always be meaning, and it really is how you choose to confront whatever it is you're being dealt with.
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone describe Viktor Frankl, but it's short and sweet, Also, why was that other quote you read earlier where it was like everything? Why did it sound like Nicola Nyholm as Bane? Like everything can be taken from a man except his primary freedoms device. I am necessary evil. 1xBet sponsorship is necessary evil. That's what Isak said, obviously.
You'll like this one, though.
Come on.
Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Like, whew, he's just got straight fire. Well worth the read. Go and check it out. Good book.
Wait, to take it back to the original topic, the other problem, I think, is this. This is where they're gonna fuck you. The people who are designing the technocratic world where VR will be a major component, they're not idiots, you know. They're not gonna let you go from an idyllic paradise world to like, nah, your choices, put this on and just eat bugs and get wagged off by a robot. Like, that's a shit choice. They've already made it so your life has become so integrated. You naively think that the choices stay in this life. Like, spoiler, the life you're currently living isn't awesome. Like, it's just a shit mainstream world. Like, the real problem is this. You're being given a false fucking dichotomy. You don't know what the alternative is. The alternative, by the way, with Nota is incredible. As far as I can tell, it's the greatest experience a human could possibly have. Family, like, providing for them, like, nature, all the, like, this. It sounds fucking amazing. So the real joke is most humans have never experienced freedom. They've never experienced what it's like to be an animal in this world. So I would actually say most people aren't even suitably in a position where they could choose the VR. You're just choosing it over the shit corporate existence you live now.
Oh, there you go. And that I think you just nailed it in the sense that if you don't even know that there are other options out there, well then that's it. You know, you just no wonder you feel trapped. No wonder you feel stuck and nihilistic. Because
then the question just becomes, when is it good enough that you say yes and plug in? That's what the question becomes, right? Yeah.
All right, Snake Gold. What's good advice that a pro player will never listen to?
I mean, I'll give you a very obvious one. You'll have had this, I've no doubt. You tell them, right, don't just sign the contract for the most amount of salary. Like, put some conditions in there that you want. Like, if you want to be able to have time off or you want to have a say in, like, whether you can be benched or not, put that in there. They never, ever, ever do it, Semler. In fact, they will always just take more salary, no matter what it says. And they'll even do stuff like they'll take all streaming hours they can never possibly logistically do. They'll take it all because they're just looking at the dollar amount. And then even worse, they'll have the gall to complain about it after they sign the contract. That's what I've told so many of my mates who are pros doing. I can never get them to fucking do it, mate. They all just sign. They always just sign. They always see the money and sign.
That's one. Everybody's always just operating on the idea that they have such a short shelf life, and so they don't want to rock the boat. You know,
like, they just can't see anything going wrong when they join the team. They can't envision that they'll be bad at the game and get benched. They can't envision that they'll need to make a roster. They just think everything's awesome. I want to join them. They're good, like my mates. Like, so they just sign. Yeah, they just sign.
That's
what do you have? You must have some that you've told some fucking doozies too. Come on.
Well, the problem is the one that I thought of is something actually that I learned recently that some pros are starting to take to heart, so that they'll never listen to. The younger generation are actually doing it, but to completely just turn your phone off during events. And never and like just completely like unplug completely, because I've seen pros, you know, who just like get all, you know, they just look at the social media and it's just like, holy shit, they're getting bombarded with all this bullshit and they let it get to them and it starts triggering them and it tilts them or whatever. It's like, turn all of that shit off completely and just do away with it completely. Now I think that is actually, like, that was yesteryear, right? Because I think that's actually changing now, where I've seen some pros talk about it where they actually unplug their phone completely during events and that's it. It doesn't exist for them anymore, which is awesome. But it didn't always used to be like that. So that was definitely one of the things where I was just like, you know, disregard the social media, disregard what the forums are saying, disregard what Reddit's saying. You don't let that get into your head. Right now you need to focus on the game. And that was always a struggle, getting guys to unplug.
Oh, by the way, along similar lines, there's another piece of advice that no one ever takes. I've told so many people, true, mostly in League of Legends, but here's my advice. So if you're listening now and you're semi-pro and you have yet to hit tier 1, take this advice on board. If you become a tier 1 pro, the day before you become a tier 1 pro, delete your Twitter and just make a new one. Now, I would say the other way you could do it is go back and delete all the old tweets. But the problem is you might fuck that up. Just make a new Twitter account. You probably only have 7k followers now anyway. Start a new one. You're getting in a tier 1 team. You'll build it up. You'll tell everyone to retweet it. That way, you can never get caught with a tweet you did when you were 12. It's going to get you in tons of trouble. You can never have made a stupid joke about, like, the Holocaust or something outrageous like that. Like, whatever you've done when you were 12, because tons of people have done this. If people don't even know, even people who are very legit, like, if you don't know, Jacob Wolf got caught with this. Jacob Wolf, or like in like 2018 or something, an old a journalist just went back and found tweets from when he was 15, when he was saying silly words that now you would get in trouble for. So I don't really see what the upside is. Like I say, you don't have the big following yet anyway. You can start over, and you're just risking that someone finds something you don't remember because you did it when you were 13.
That's a really good point. Yeah, especially today when you have access to it at such a young age, like social media. I mean, dude, imagine if they go back and find your old MySpace page or something. Toby, what do you think the best sporting event in the world is? E.g. World Cup, Olympics, UFC, F1, tennis.
Okay. I'd be interested in what you think, because I know you're not like super in sports, but you like some. So what is it for you? Like fucking bouldering world championships or something?
I'm actually looking forward to ADCC.
Oh, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
down
World
right
Championship.
Now. Yeah, grappling, the World Grappling. It's the Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, it is.
But it is going down, and it's this event that's coming up. It's going to kick off in a couple of weeks now. It's fucking sick. It is stacked. It is probably the most competitive it will have ever been. It's going to be just batshit crazy.
You know, one thing that actually triggers the fuck out of me.
So it's not like it happens all the time. Like, you have time to build the stories, you have time to build the hype, and so I really appreciate that event right now. Go ahead.
You know, when everyone always, I don't know if you know this, but when everyone talks about like Eddie Bravo, obviously Joe Rogan's mate who did like his own way of jiu-jitsu with the rubber guard on, they always try to shit on him, right? Because unfortunately he's not Brazilian and he doesn't come from the Gracie lineage, right? So everyone always tries to like downplay him, like, oh,
in fact, that's what got him on the stage, is that he beat a Gracie.
That's what people don't know. They don't know he literally at the World Championships beat a Gracie. By the way, if you don't know how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu works, like if you're like some nobody, you don't accidentally beat people. The joke is beating people is what gets you the belt. Like if you can beat the belt, and this isn't just a black belt, you're beating like a legendary black belt who is like one of like the greatest lineages ever in the history of the sport. So people don't know that, mate. They think he just did like wacky videos on the internet. They're like, this guy, he had his own super legit background. But anyway, yeah. So for you, it'd be the ADCC.
Great fire as well. He beat so the rematch is just amazing. It's totally worth watching. It's on YouTube. The rematch between him and
what makes that really interesting, if you don't know, is because they actually later, they did a Joe Rogan after where he brought on the Gracie guy and he actually explained to him what he was doing. Because if people don't know what Eddie Bravo did in that fight was, because this other guy is better than him at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Eddie Bravo just has his own specialties. So in this case, he was in like quarter guard or something the whole time, and he just knew like, right, I'm only going to operate from this area. Essentially, this is my office. I'm only going to stay here, never give up position or try and make like submissions. And that's why, even though like if you're a casual, the second fight won't be as entertaining. But if you know what's going on, it's mega fast. It's like a chess match, basically. If you understand what they're trying to do, it's actually amazing. You could actually tell that in that particular fight that the Gracie guy didn't really understand why he was sort of giving up position and stuff. So I thought that was a super unique fight. Yeah. For me, by the way, it would be easy. It would be something like, I would probably take any of the tennis Grand Slams. I think those are generally, if you like tennis, is very good quality. Snooker World Championship's pretty good too. These are pretty much always banging.
Yeah. Okay. That's I was expecting like NBA or NFL or something along those lines.
No, because those can be ruined by the teams, unfortunately.
That's a good point.
Like you can get some really bad matchups in those, and also in those finals. Here's what's different in those finals, because the pressure of being a champion does always affect people. Even great people get affected. I've noticed in like traditional American sports, because it's a one and done. You reach the championship at the end of the year, and that's it. You either win and you're a champion, or you're a fucking loser and you lost. It actually sort of ruins the match as well. The finals don't tend to be the best in the NFL and the NBA. Whereas actually, what's awesome about like UFC is, dude, people have some of their best fights in the title fight because it's just a different mentality. Like I think it's a way more high quality sport.
All the way up. Also, honorable mention is ONE FC. I think that like they're just coming onto the radar in a big way right now, and it feels awesome. Like the whole Mighty Mouse story over there that's going on, where he just got deleted from UFC, went over to ONE, and now regained his title again. It's just such a sick arc, and he's just an artist, dude. Like the guy's amazing.
Well, they have some good people over there. I think Sassy fights there at the moment. One of my favorites.
So definitely, I'd say go and look in on that if you're interested in that sort of thing. Okay, Blaz. Do you think there will ever be another CS country as dominant as Sweden? Maybe in a different timeline without the war, could it have been a CIS country? Ooh, CIS, I feel like there's always going to be bleed between Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine. It's going to be hard to have like the one nationality, like full Russian or full Kazakhstani or whatever. I mean, the obvious answer is Denmark. Right? Because I mean, it started out with Sweden and then it went French and then Denmark and the Danes ruled. And now we're actually maybe going into some kind of weird hybrid between the CIS region and international between FaZe and Navi. So, I mean, probably the most dominant, you have to go with the Danes because they just like look at they legitimately had like 3 top teams at one point and then extra Danes kind of peppered in on the other teams as well. Like the Danes are everywhere. They're taking over. So what do you think?
No, I agree. I think Denmark's the obvious other choice. And if people don't know, there was even a period in 1.6 in 2008 where they had the best team. MTW with Trace and Sunday and Ave was the best team at the time as well. So it's not like they didn't do anything in 1.6. They were also sort of like 3rd or 4th in that game. So I think Denmark's the obvious other one aside from Sweden. I do think that essentially in CSGO, it does look like Russia potentially could have. Now it's not going to happen because of all the world situation, obviously, but they actually had an insane pipeline of talent. I mean, if people haven't watched, not only did people like that Patsy guy from Spirit just come out of nowhere, but even this guy they replaced Dexter with, this like 17-year-old Ukrainian wonderful. Like, he's already had some pop-off games, mate. Like, where are they finding these 16-year-old wonder kids? But there's just tons of talent there is the point. The real shame is this. The real what if is if somehow they'd properly done the publishing and Korea had ever cared about CSGO. Because you know this from Overwatch, Semler. Korea has some of the most fucking mechanically talented players you will ever find. Like, you watch those guys from Overwatch, Fletter, fucking like Sabiel B, Prophet. These guys are unbelievable. Like Sire player. You want these guys in a CS:GO. I'm telling you guys, that's the real what if. Because if you don't know, any game that Koreans have ever gotten obsessed with, they have become number one in that game. So I always thought in Counter-Strike that was the obvious what if. Like, imagine if we'd had all these Korean players instead of playing League of Legends and Valorant and Overwatch. Imagine the world's playing CS:GO. It'd be fucking amazing.
It would, like, you always see the mechanical skill out of there. You always wonder, like, you always kind of wish that there was going to be that Asian team, that breakout team that was going to make it and just inject into the scene this whole CS vibe. That would have been amazing, but we never really got that for whatever reason. It's whatever is available in the PC bangs, and then there you go. I guess that's the culture. But yeah, I agree with you on that one. Robbie Leet almost feels like 1117. Never mind. Seems like Hunter is always brought up in relation to Nico. Can you talk a bit about Hunter as a player, his skill set, and where he ranks amongst top pros? I mean, I bring up Hunter in relation to Nico jokingly because, I mean, it's just Kovac and, you know, talking about conflict of interest in a sense. It's just like as soon as you knew that Hunter and Nico were going to be playing on the same team, I always felt like there was going to be problems there, going to be friction, because now you're talking about blood. It's not even just a friend. It's already hard enough to play on a team with a friend, but to play on a team with a family member, I feel like that was always going to be taking a big risk. Because how do you know, if you need to cut somebody or if you need to change places or if you need to do anything, you know, I feel like it could make things that much more tricky when you're dealing with family on top of when you're dealing with friends. So that was always my perspective on Hunter, and why, the angle that I always took on Hunter's side of things is that he's related to Nico, and so he's a blood relation, and that always made things way more tricky than they needed to be, I feel like.
I know what you mean. That, like, the problem with that is obviously his cousin is more famous and is perceived, keyword perceived, to be the defining factor of the roster. So the premise goes, maybe he isn't even in the team because he's the best, but because he's his cousin. That's why he's always brought up. So I would say, as an individual player, what's amazing to me is he's nothing like Nico at all. Like, I don't see any connection at all. To me, the brilliant thing is, as a person and as a player, he seems like he has a completely different personality. Like, yeah, that's why I actually think they work together fairly well, because Hunter actually seems like the more chilled out one, whereas Nico's the more intense one. Hunter seems like the better teammate, whereas Nico's the better individual player. And then as individual players, Nico's style is like, he has the best aim, and he has probably amazing fucking timing on when to be aggressive and when to bait a little bit. I'd say Hunter's more of just an all-round player. He's like a player with like nice skills, nice all-around game, fits into your squad, doesn't have a big ego, does what he's asked to do, and doesn't try to be the superstar player. So I actually think that's why they even fit together. If I had to look at them as actual, like, separating them out, like, where is he in the world or whatever, the thing is, in general, I actually think this period of LAN that we got into late last year has really helped Hunter. Before that, I thought he was a little bit more shaky. I noticed once he got a whole bunch of the LANs under his belt, from the major onwards, PGL Stockholm on, I feel like he's gotten really bedded into top LAN play. And actually now he's pretty consistent. So I think he's a pretty good player. Like, I would guess he's maybe... He could be a top 20 player, maybe top 20. He's top 20 to 30, maybe. Maybe I was like my 21st best player or 19th best player in the world or something. He's pretty good. I think he's a pretty good player. He's probably like a sleeper at this point in time.
Certainly going to be, I mean, he's certainly going to be instrumental in G2's success going forward. If there is any success, I mean, he's got some heavy weight on his shoulders now, because it's him, it's m0NESY, and it's Nico. If they can't make that work, the G2 machine is not going to function. So I feel like he has the chops to be one of the three, probably, you know, obviously the last in that kind of combination, m0NESY and Nico at the top, and then Hunter there to back him up. But I don't see him overtaking Nico or overtaking m0NESY in terms of individual performance. He's certainly just going to be a very solid, reliable rifleman. And then hopefully JKS is going to be there to back him up and round that out, turn that triangle into a square. Okay. Coach Paul, what is the smallest mistake you have seen someone in esports make that ultimately ruined their career?
Ooh, ruined their career.
What is the smallest mistake you have seen someone in esports make that ultimately ruined their career?
I think it's going to here's the thing. I think it's going to actually have to be outside of CSGO. Because the problem in CSGO is we've gotten a lot of chat. Like, for example, you can't say KNG. He actually had a whole career after all that stupid shenanigans with the tweets and stuff. He was in MOVR, he was at events and stuff. So he's still got to have a career. Didn't end his career. I think in CSGO, people tend to be forgiven to some degree. I would say it's probably like a different esport. Like, let me think of a good example.
I mean, well, smallest mistake, I don't know. Hunden, coach bugs. I don't know. Like,
yeah, but the problem with that is he still got hired after that. That wasn't the end of his career. It was the response to what he did with trying to set the other people up. They actually fucked it. It wasn't even the coaching bug thing. So, I'll give you a good one. I actually think an obvious example would be the iBuyPower players. People forget this. They threw an online game that was meaningless against a team that was owned partially by one of their players, Dazed. It's not even like they tried to make it super malicious and purposely defraud. Like, it actually, of all the thrown games, it was one of the least, like, meaningful. People act like they bloody threw the major final or something, don't they? And they'll never be forgiven. Like, the idea that in 2022 they still can't play in majors because they threw an online game in 2014. That just seems like it's not as big a thing relative to the punishment. So there's one. Like someone like Swag would have had a great career, probably. It just seems obvious, right?
Without a doubt. Who knows what could have happened there? That's a really good point.
Because the other ones I was thinking of was like, it hasn't ruined his career because at the moment he's playing in Valorant, but like people like Yampy, where they just cheated when they were like 12 on an account that got vacked, and then you just can't ever play for that reason. Like, that's pretty fucked up, that angle as well. I'm not a big fan of that generally.
You know, that's the thing. Ultimately ruined their career. I mean, it hasn't ruined Sato's career, but his birthday stream. I mean, that's
I can't believe you just cited that now, but whatever. It's fair enough. It is by the numbers, I guess.
I mean, it is one of those things where it definitely hurt. Maybe didn't ruin it, but it definitely hurt, and it hurt him in other ways as well because he wanted to transition into F1 and stuff like that, and that definitely made things difficult for him there. So that might have been it. Literally one word put all sorts of barriers up in front of him.
You know what? I know this is actually a pretty good answer to the question, but you're all going to think, did it hurt his career? I think it did. I actually think Dost's whole thing wrecked him. Because remember, first of all, everyone to this day thinks he said YOLO's noobs. He didn't. Van Silly said that. That's not even the line Dost said. Yeah, Dost said, yeah, Smiths is a good player, and then held up a kappa sign to be sarcastic. That's it.
Exactly.
So the idea that means forever. I mean, by the way, first of all, if people don't know, Simple on stream or just called Dost a pig because of that, by the way.
Yes, he did.
By the way, you know when everyone goes, I respect people, be respectful to Simple. He calls people pigs when he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Who is this pig?
Yeah, he just called him a pig. The best player, well, it wasn't the best player in the world at the time, but like obviously a great player. Like that essentially ruined Dust's whole rep. Like he had some weird rep for someone he isn't. Now, I don't know if it like killed his career. Obviously he had some casting, but it definitely limited him. I'm pretty sure it meant he could never hit a certain high as a caster or talent.
Without a doubt. It's certain things like that just stack up against you, and then all of a sudden it's just you're not quite making that cut. Yeah, that was definitely one of those. That's a good point to bring up. The kappa sign. Also, yeah, he didn't even say it. Brutal. All right, what is the let's see, RNG.
I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to put this out there.
All right, go for it.
If you want people to respect you and your teammates, aged a bit badly that you're calling Dust a pig. What teammates did you play with last year, Simple? Can I run through the list? You're calling people pigs, mate. Can I just have a look at can I bring up the pictures of Simple's teammates from last year? Let's review them for porcine qualities. Mate, you're having a fucking laugh, aren't you? And also, mate, have you seen his middle parting now? Man alive. Fucking hell. Looks like someone's giving a pig a haircut. Right, come on then.
There it is.
Course. Next question.
That haircut does leave something to be desired. All right, RNG says, how much more would FaZe need to do in order to enter the conversation for having an era?
I've answered this a bunch of times. In my opinion, they're already close. So if they win the next major, I think it's guaranteed. I think if they get the Grand Slam, like Win Pro League, it's probably there. I think they're pretty close. The problem is, and this is why it's tough, as Liquid, as FaZe showed you, this is what's tough. I always think this is a misunderstood point. Because to have the era, you must win the biggest tournaments. You can't simply just be really good still. So the problem is, even though now it feels like, well, they're so close, they only have to win one more tournament. Yeah, but that's famous last words. Like winning the biggest international tournaments is by definition the hardest thing to do in the game. So unfortunately, you can be winning, like Astralis, you can be winning 1 million, but the second you stop winning, you might never win again. So the problem is, we can't guarantee they'll do it, basically. I agree, they're that close, but until they do it, they have to just get it done, I'm afraid. That's the way it works. There's no, essentially, there's no, like, you were close. You all see how that worked for Liquid. There's no you were close. You either have the era or you don't.
That's exactly it.
Which makes sense, because the whole premise of the era is you were the dominant team. So if you're anything but dominant, people can question it, of course.
Yeah, and there is actually, like, it wasn't even, I mean, they were dominant in that they pulled off a string of major events that were just terrific to win, right? Katowice, Cologne, the major, right? But there were a few events that did slip through their fingers, FaZe. It wasn't like they were just
Thing is, though,
completely
that's why if they win the major, it's just game over, because they'll have won all the big events in the Europe, basically, minus Blast, that's it.
Yeah.
So
Blast
how can you argue with
the
that?
only holdout at that point, and now, well, FaZe have qualified. They've managed to make the run in, and they've qualified for the fall finals, so they will be there. And then, based off of that, we'll see if they make it to the world finals. But yeah, no, there's a terrific opportunity here for FaZe. I think it's totally doable. I think the major is probably the best bet for them, just because of the format and the way it's set up. No coach involvement. I think that's really gonna. I think that is going to challenge Na'Vi. Still will challenge Na'Vi in their ability. I think that little bit of a change is going to be enough to offset whatever they've got going against FaZe right now. All right, BZ, what peak 1.6, 1.3 team would you want to bring to face a peak CSGO team, and what team would that be? Who would win? All right, this is your question.
Yeah, I actually think that there's two obvious ways you'd go on this. You'd either go, like, I feel like the most obvious way you'd want to go is you'd actually want a team that played very loose Counter-Strike, because what you'd want in the modern day in CSGO, if you're playing like a Na'Vi or something, there's people who can frag out and can just make plays. So I actually think the team I would bring, because in terms of like raw firepower, this might be the most skilled team ever. I would bring the Fnatic team from 2009, because that was the year where they had Get Right, Gox, and Forest, who were all three like incredible riflers. And then the supportive elements was Khan, the in-game leader, who used to be a fragging leader before that. And then DSN was a support element. DSN used to be one of the best Swedish AWPers before that. People don't know. So this was a team where, like, essentially they transitioned some stars to supportive elements, did a good job, and then brought in the greatest like front line we'd ever seen. So like that team, essentially, that's a team that, like, if it was in its era, could go with like Na'Vi and the FaZe clan teams, and that's like one where they would love the modern style of CS, where it's more loosey goosey. It's not like set tactics from spawn and stuff, because that's the problem. Some of the great 1.6 teams, I think the game's too different. Whereas these guys, they would just frag out.
Yeah, they would just frag out. They would fit right into the system. Yeah, that would be sick. And I like that as well. Definitely go and check out the reflections on Thorn's main channel with Forrest, because he mentions DSN. You guys actually talk about the Swedish scene back then and some of the dynamics between the players. Really cool, really interesting to listen to if you want a slice of history. So definitely go and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, no, that sounds like an interesting lineup. That would be really cool to see in action today. All right, Kozya, how much does the location matter for the quality of an event or major? How much does
I personally think it's mega overrated myself, because like unless you're actually attending as a fan or a pro player, I don't think it really affects very much. Like to me, I'm more interested in like how good is the stadium, how good is the event, and all that jazz, you know.
I think like I would actually, this is why I rank Cologne so highly as an event, is it's international. So it's not, you don't get the Copenhagen Astralis, fan concentration, right? Where it's 90% Astralis fans in the audience. And so they're deadly quiet if Astralis are losing, but if Astralis are winning, it's awesome. Like Cologne, you get a really good balance of CS fans. And so you have to go to international places like Lisbon. Blast Lisbon, terrific, because the Portuguese fans don't get events that often, but they are still hardcore fans. And so they just go nuts. The culture there is to go wild in the arena. The energy is awesome. Cologne, same kind of vibe. It's close to everybody so that everybody can get to it. And so again, blow the roof off the place. Super sick. I think this last Cologne maybe was a little bit quieter than normal, because I guess it's the first Cologne back and it wasn't as full as it was in the past. But still, Cologne ranks pretty high. The other one that I would say is...
I agree in general, but the one thing I have a problem with Cologne is this. They hold it in July, don't they, Semler? I'd just like to have it any other month of the year where I don't have to see Degeneracy to also see a Counter-Strike event. Bit of an edgy take, but fuck it. It's what you're here for.
Wait, what? But that's June. June is Pride Month.
Is it? I thought it was July. Is it?
No.
I don't fucking know, mate. Who cares? Whatever.
I had to live through Overwatch.
No, wait, that doesn't make sense, though, because we had it. It's always been in July at Cologne, but I've seen them do the Pride match, like, when I was there.
Really?
Well, there was that one time where I won't mention the member of talent, but they saw an actual guy in a dog mask sucking someone's dick on one of those marches in front of all kids.
It's Germany, after all.
Cool. Yeah, that's just cool, I guess. Just Degeneracy in front of kids. Great. Brilliant.
Well, no, that's the thing. Actually, there's a bunch of different ones, because like there's Pride Month.
I think internationally it's different, Semler. Yeah,
and you can still exactly nationally it might be different, because then there's like a Pride week in Stockholm afterwards. It turns out it's just Pride every fucking day. So it's just, you can't escape it. It's just all over the place all the time. But yeah, that's that sounds very reasonable.
I know exactly. That was outside like the venue, dude. Because if you don't know, like the hotel you stay in is like right central. It's right next to that big bridge where they put all the unoriginal people put a padlock on to go. I'll probably be with this woman forever, and then literally like ding 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 ding, like 10 million of padlocks. Like, yeah, it worked out for all them, you stupid cunt. I know. It's so stupid, the world, in it. I know.
Reasonable.
It's like that one. Did you see this picture? I saw it online. It's probably a meme, but I could believe real people would do this. Where, you know, obviously the famous tradition that you throw a coin into a wishing well, you get a wish. There was people going along with cards, scanning their card in the water, like, you fucking twat. Like a credit card. I know. I know. Probably fucking smooya and his mates want it. I'm like, oh well, better get him with God. I'm gonna cash back on this motherfucker on PayPal. But Smooya would do that. He would like PayPal some like fucking diocese in some other country for like a blessing for a match, and then just like reverse the charges just to get fucking cash back or whatever charge back at all.
Dude, it's so outrageous. Okay, just HLTV confirmed helping out a player. There you go. All right, let's see. Last question. What sport, archives of Justinian, what sport would be improved the most by having a calendar like CS with regular tournaments and a couple of majors? What sport would be improved the most by having a calendar like CS with regular tournaments and a couple of majors? I mean, you're already close. You're already close with the tennis Grand Slams, in a sense.
I actually think it might be a team sport. Like, you know what? I actually think it might be something like NBA. Because here's the problem I've always thought. If the NBA wasn't a giant season with one playoffs, and remember, they still use the old boomer method of geolocation. So you also, if you're in the West, Semler, it's just way harder in almost all points in history. And like the joke is like the two best teams don't play in the final because who says the team from the East is the second best? You know what I mean? Like, so if instead basketball was like a bunch of tournaments, and the idea is like you play a few of them. The other cool thing is it wouldn't be like win or lose. You wouldn't be like you're either the champion or nothing. It'd be like you could win two of the majors and then you win a major, and it's like we shared the year, but like we were the two best teams. Like that's one thing I think the open circuit does very well. It gives you so many chances to be great and to prove that you're great, not just like a binary like did you win on this day? Because spoiler, in League of Legends, for example, there's been a bunch of teams that won the world championship who were nowhere near the best team, and that was just the one day when they fluked it or they just won the final. You know, like that can't happen in a CS circuit because you can win a major like Cloud9 did. What happened to them after the major? Bombed it immediately, and everyone saw them exposed. If that's the NBA, they get to just sit for a whole year like we are the champions. Let's see next time, and it's like actually you might just be a fraud the whole time. So there's actually a lot of mainstream sports I would love to have that circuit. It's why I love the tennis circuit, basically.
Yeah, there you go. The tennis circuit kind of plays. And haven't we talked about this in the past? I'm sure we've touched on this sort of topic in the past.
Yeah. Do you have one that you would change into a CS circuit?
No. Sorry?
Do you have a sport you want to change?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, because I think I don't really follow sports in that sense. So it's just like, what sport would I want to be going along those lines?
Like, think about this. Everyone always tells me, I don't believe it's true, that they want leagues and they want it to be really long and a lot of matches. And then everyone just watches Formula One where every week it's a race and someone wins. Like, that's the circuit I'm talking about, you idiots. Exactly. That's what you want. You don't want one. Imagine if it was a league and it was just one giant fucking set of races, but like each was like a stage, and at the end, like obviously you win the championship, you get to win the individual race. That has its own thrill, its own internal narrative, doesn't it?
Well, I guess, I mean, there's that. And also you have time. You have time that builds up. You have to look forward to that league. You have to look for, and then it only lasts for a finite amount of time. And then that's it. You're waiting for 2, 3, 4 months, however much time until the next one as well. It gives you time to build hype, gives you time to get up to it. But I see what you mean in terms of like weekly races. It builds hype along the way. It's not just, filler like Blast, like the Blast group stage feels like, where it's just, constant fucking matches and you don't really care until the very end. You
know what's fucked up? I don't know what's gone wrong with this show, but I keep thinking up jokes that aren't in any way connected to what we're talking about. So it's almost inappropriate to bring them up, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right. So here's one for you. Because obviously I was thinking about the HLTV Confirmed podcast as we were just ripping on Smooya, right? So I was thinking of this joke. Here's the joke, right? If Professor from HLTV.org wakes up at an event and he turns over and there's a horse's head on the pillow, you're probably thinking he's been fucking with the Sicilian mafia, hasn't he? What I'm thinking is Nomad couldn't afford 2 hotel rooms for the staff.
Dude. You're fucking God. Come on, man.
I don't give a fuck. I just don't give a fuck, mate. Just don't care. Just don't even care. Whatever. Keep that in. Don't timestamp that. Keep that in. Keep that.
Oh, no, of course not.
No
No,
more
no.
timestamps.
Always, yeah, no timestamps at all. Keep it all in.
Listen, it had nothing to do with what we're talking about. I thought it was
Exactly.
I know, yeah, whatever.
But it's just like,
How many more questions are there, by the way? Is there any more?
that's it. That was the last
that's
one.
it. That was us. Well, perfect.
Yeah,
ending
that was the last one. It's a good note to end on. So yeah, thanks, my dude, for another show this week, and we'll be catching up next week. Thanks everybody who's been tuning in, and be sure to leave a review. Be sure to leave a follow, leave a thumbs up, leave a review wherever you're listening. But big shout out to all the fans tuning in, and big thanks for the support. We'll see you guys next week.
Chris is still in the picture. Oh, I'm still very much in the round. Oh, Chris, he's found 3. It's down to a 2-on-2. Chris, can he close this with an ace? Oh my God!
Gives him a chance at least, and this CZ kill could be everything. Finally, Zeus, he does something!
Looking for a second, he connects it. Oh,